I was muted the entire time. Fuck, sorry. I was muted. I was muted. Thank you, Kobe. I was muted. Um anyway, we're gonna be doing hanging chats. It'll be fun. And we'll get to that in a second. Just I haven't done a muted intro in a while. But here we are. Okay. Yeah, I was muted. Okay. Yeah. And so is my uh yeah, I was muted. And
I had to save you from yourself.
yeah, thanks. Anyways, right, yeah, we're doing hanging chads again. We had done this like 3 weeks ago. We would have done it since then, but at first I was traveling, so we couldn't do it. And the next week, our friend Kobe was unavailable. So two hosts, two points of failure. So it is what it is. But I'm really excited to once again be with my man Kobe. Kobe, introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. Failure is a necessary part of success. Okay, so we had one successful hanging chads, we had two failed hanging chads. Now our second successful hanging chads. Let's go. I'm chilling, as you can see. I got new glasses. They're kind of cheap, and so they're very reflective. But I feel like this gives me like that feeling of like the anime guy. Like I feel like I'm like from Evangelion. I'm like sitting behind my glasses. There's a reflection. You can't really see my true intentions. So I like that. I like that it's myserious. You don't really know. You don't really know. Am I joking? Am I serious? Is this an analysis? Is it a character? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell, really.
Yeah. Okay, that's one way of doing things. Um, yeah. All right. So let's get started. And I like the Evangelion reference. Like I do. I love Ava a lot. And playing Armor Core 6.
I was gonna
Uh,
say it's a mech moment.
it's a mech moment. I mean I love Gundam and I love Evangelion. I just we should talk about that sometime about my deep love for that. But any
I,
which way.
just very quickly before we get started, just because they're armored core. I think there's a mech moment to this. I think there's something about a stark metal machine with which you interact with on a physical basis. You become the physical avatar of the machine. I think there's something about that fantasy that speaks very much to like what it is like to live in the modern age and what it is like to exist in a very hyper technological society where you have to pilot a car, you have to pilot all kinds of contraptions just to cook your breakfast and take a shower. Let alone if you work in any kind of job that requires any kind of machines. And there's a strange disconnect. You have to kind of in the same way in the mech media, the pilot has to trust the mech. They form a bond with the mech. In the same way, you kind of have to you have to kind of just like drive. You learning a part of learning to drive a car is just kind of learning to feel what it feels like to drive a car. It's a hard, you can't just read a book. You have to engage with the machine. Um, I think mechs are. I think at least that's what I like about the fantasy. They represent that. They represent the machine coming to life, and a point in which the dead machine and the live human sort of mesh, and they become sort of a combination
I can see that. I would have never put in those words, but like especially in a lot of good mecha anime, like that's like a theme that they really explore. And like the combination. And in fact, sometimes like when like they get like a power up, that power up is them somehow integrating with the machine better than they were previously, like in Gundam. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was super cool. So let's get started though. We have some videos. We're gonna watch the videos and we're gonna talk about the videos. And we'd love to hear back from you guys. If you would like to make a comment on anything that's happening, then drop us, well, first drop a like, follow the channel, or subscribe to the channel if you're on Twitch and YouTube. Use a hype chat or a super chat. That's how you get your comments read if you are interested in that. Okay. We're in the first video will be from our friend Kobe. Kobe, you want to introduce it?
Yes, the very popular sort of, I guess, I think I'd consider her at least a little bit of a conservative, maybe a centrist YouTuber. Shoe on Head made a very, very good video about the male loneliness epidemic and kind of talking about some of the reactions to the Andrew Tates of the world. I believe she touches maybe briefly on the Barbie and Barbies and these kind of things. And this is something, this has been a big element of my personal sort of fitness journey. Has also been a personal. I've discovered the world of self help books. I've discovered the world of books about how to be a man. And there's a lot of cool things I've learned. There's a lot of silly things I've found out. And so I don't know. I've this specific topic is something that really interests me. Have you at all kind of been engaging with the reaction to Andrew Tate or to the discourse around men's issues at all, or is this something that's
I would talk to you about that, but I screwed up. I When I started up the stream, right? I like was testing to see where everything worked, and I noticed that the faces weren't lined up here on my screen, right? And so I realigned them before the start of this, and now I realize the reason why is because there's supposed to be an extra spot being for the video for you to see, and I disaligned everything. So you keep talking while I fix this, please.
Of course, no, yeah. Just to, I don't know, just to kind of give some of my takes on this, though. I guess some of the cool things I've learned. There's a really good article in the New York Times, or either in the New York Times or in Washington Post, one or the other, that talks about the exact same thing. Something called the issue with men, and that one's a very hopeful article that frames it in history as this being a reoccurring social phenomenon. I've also been reading a lot of books about. I've been reading one book, Nixon Land, which talks about the Nixon presidency, and there was a whole lot of discussion in the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s about this exact same thing, about the sissification of the human or the American male, and how we didn't win Vietnam because all the men, the types of men that we would have fought, that would have existed in World War II don't exist anymore. Those kind of things I think you see all the time nowadays. Those were very much in the cultural zeitgeist back then. So, history first is tragedy and then as farce, I suppose.
Okay. And keep talking. I've realigned my head, and now I need to realign your head. I do apologize.
This is something that I was thinking. This is an observation that I made, and I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts on this are. So I was reading this was a totally other thing that was talking about what's it called, polarization, right? Like how Americans are very polarized, and there was a chapter that was talking about hypothetical future terrorists and future mass shooters, and they talk about like the psychology of a mass shooter. What kind of life is this person living, kind of thing. And they describe like the sort of hypothetical, like the stereotype of the incel, the stereotype of the political extremist kind of person, a person who's like, very little social life. All of their meaning comes from internet extremism, interest in video games, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very, very stereotypical thing. And obviously part of it is, that I want, part of it's like, I don't know, how do I put this? When people are talking or trying to stereotype I think you just have like an innate response to reject it, even if there is truth to the stereotype. But something I remembered was there's a similar nature to the way that people are talking about the problems among the whatever demographics of young men are having problems now, and the way that people talked about problems within different like minority communities, whether it's like the Latino community or the Black community in the 1990s, where it was like a very stereotypical. Like a lot of the time, there'd be these article released that would talk about like the culture, quote unquote, of this or that crime-ridden community. And a lot of the time, it'd be like this very, very it's a very stereotypical reading, talking, talks a lot about the worst elements of things, the worst elements of the culture, the worst elements of the aesthetic, without an understanding of like why do people go to that? Why are there people? Why are there so many people within this and that community that are interested in, say, gangster rap or interested in this and that type of lifestyle? And I don't know. I feel a similar thing with a lot of these men's discussions,
Mhm.
where it's just like it's a there's an accusatory tone in everything. People kind of pretend like they're just asking questions. Why are men this way? Why are they interested in this? Why are they such idiots that are interested in conspiracy theories? Why do who was it? Recently there was a YouTube video that was talking about the history of Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like a very popular guy, or a very popular podcast amongst this kind of, I think, the male loneliness demographic kind of crowd. And it's obvious why Joe Rogan is popular. He's like he's a very laid back interviewer that makes you feel like you're just talking to a really, like a really famous person. That's a very attractive interview style. But the video was like talking about him as if like anybody within any level of intelligence would know that Joe Rogan's an idiot and they would never listen to him. And so
So
it's like,
where
here's
are
the
you going
video.
with this? Where are you going with this?
Oh, I just like all it. What a lot of the time, I don't know if you'd call I don't want to call it like liberal commentary, but commentary about the issues of these different groups. You cannot get out of this feeling of like a implied accusatory nature. It's not a true interest of trying to understand why are men pushing interested in this and that negative thing, whether it's Andrew Tate, whether it's video games, whether it's not feeling socially accepted. It's less of an interest in trying to understand actually why they're doing that, and it's more so trying to backwards justify why we can dismiss them for having made those decisions. There's a heavy emphasis on why those things they've chosen are bad, and not as much of an emphasis on why do they choose those bad things. And I think that that's something that you see a lot in the discussion of male loneliness. You see that a lot with the discussion of any kind of like minority community, where it's like, let's talk about all the negative elements of what they're doing, all the things they're doing that are self-destructive. And when you focus on that, it's like, I think it's just a subconscious, because you think that these people kind of like they want their own self-destruction. So we're going to focus on the self-destruction because we all assume that really they kind of just want it.
I mean, I guess I would agree. That was a lot, Kobe. Sorry. I guess I would agree with you that it's a very individualist. I mean, it's an individualistic look at something that tends to be a bit more systemic, right? And like, what is the environment that is creating the need to do these things, right? Like, but when it comes to hip hop videos, like, why are people being drawn to this? Well, like it like for so many individuals, well, why is it being created? It's being created by people who grew up in that environment where crime was the only employer, and so that informs their commentary, and then from there there are other kids who understand that and they're listening to it. Then, like, being African Americans, and then expands out to other kids who feel disaffected from the country, and they might like it, or they just like the beat because this has got a good beat. Beyond that, not everything is like a you know, but but yeah, like there are reasons why, rather than simply, oh, these people have a culture of violence. There's something about these people inherently that makes them that way. So yeah, I would agree. Before then, Man Brave, thank you for resubbing for 7 months. Nice to see you. Hello, Kagruz, A Karg. I don't know how to say your name at all, but thanks for being here, and thank you for following the Twitch channel. But yeah, so why don't we get started with this video? Um, you see it? Do you see it up in
Yeah, I'm watching right now.
Okay, all right. So this is Shoe on Heads video, the male loneliness epidemic. Let's get started.
I regret to inform you the men are not okay. That's right, folks, the men are not okay. The men have no friends, no girlfriend, no college education, no money, are breaking their legs and inserting metal rods into their bones to be a few inches taller, and listening to AI.
I saw, okay, this, just quickly, I saw this on, not on TikTok, but on a channel called Truly. I brought it up a few times on my channel, but it's just a channel that shows that different people living different like lifestyles. Yeah, and this guy had leg surgery to get taller. I saw this like a few days ago. But like my shock was at how effective it was. Like he is like 6 foot or maybe above 6 foot now. And from like 5'6" or something. Like he grew like, yeah, 5 foot to 6 foot. So he grew 7 inches with this surgery. I thought it was only like a few, like 2 inches at best, but apparently 7 inches of height. But you have to get your shin bone cracked and then expanded slowly. So pain over many months, but he did it. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. These kind of things are very good examples to me to of like the limits of the do your own thing society, right? There's a reason that that guy wants to break his legs and have his bones reconstructed to be taller. And that's because we've created a society in which height in men is like deeply socially rewarded. And I think a lot of times people will just be like, well, that's his choice. He just decided one day he wanted to be taller, and our epic liberal society gave him the option. And it's like there's a very we
so
feed ourselves.
would you take that option away from him? I like.
Oh, I would absolutely say that this kind of surgery should be banned. Yeah, I think that body modification that exists that is like super extreme has a significant ramification like this, which like has all kinds of likelihood of like complications, and that it just is aesthetics. It's just to make you look taller so you can gain social status and social position. There should be heavy regulations on them. Yeah, heavy regulations.
So what about breast augmentation?
I mean, that is not something that has like the significant negative ramifications in the body. If there was like if there was like a year and a half where you just were in a hospital bed and there's a likelihood that it might mess up the whole time, then
it's the length of the recovery. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the chance of the damage it does to you as an individual. Yeah.
That seems weird, right? Like lots of procedures like have a heavy toll on the body. Some of them can be, for medical purposes, for rehabilitation purposes, and others, yeah, can be because you want to. Like this is a big difference between Kobe and I, right? Because I'm more for, yeah, let people do what they want. Like for the most part.
Let's just start here. We can all agree that they want this because we have a society that tells them they want this. Whether we're talking about very, very large breasts or to be 5 inches taller. Or do you think that they're just like, it actually just is? They're just like inside of their brain. It was like
100%. I get it. Yeah. We have society that encourages that. Yeah, I'm with it. But rather than take away means or heavily restrict the means for them to achieve whatever little happiness they can in their short lives, like let's work on changing that society so that all body types are loved.
This will come back as we watch more of the video, but one of the reasons why we're ever increasing a society, reaching a society where people are choosing I'm going to sit in my little pleasure pod. I'm not going to engage in larger society. People are checking out. The more you're seeing that, the more the male loneliness is partially influenced by this fact that people have to exist in a society where there's all of these negative, whether it's look standards, whatever, and then you're encouraged to modify your life to fit into those standards. And if you don't, we give you the option to break your legs and regrow them. And then there's like an infinite chorus of people that would be like your perspective that's forever being like, well, listen, that's their choice. That's freedom. So I'm thinking,
but just unless I missed it, maybe I did. Like you still haven't answered the question of changing the society, though, right? Like we can have cultural shifts that change behavior. We can have government policy that can change cultural attitudes.
Aren't I advocating for changing or for policy that changes behavior by saying we should heavily regulate something like this?
No, we shouldn't regulate people's choices. We shouldn't regulate people's choices. We should instead encourage people to be loved for who they are, right? A society, but like even then, I don't know. Look, women like tall men, and I don't know of a point in time. Like I'm not aware. Maybe you have a better look at of antiquity than I do. Do you know of a point in time when women have not liked tall men?
I don't know. I mean, if I had to guess, I would probably guess going back to probably even pre-human times. That chimpanzees,
This
But that's
sexual dimorphism is a thing. I don't know. And they like tall men.
if there's like those, we should, you know, those human universals being as they are, those desires and pulls being as they are, and then we get to like throw the drape of individual choice over them. That's what it feels like. We're draping the like you know how like they're have you ever seen those old Apple PCs where you can see the inner workings of the computer from the outside,
Mhm.
right? I like that. I'm interested in that, where you can see the inner machinations of why people are making the decision. And I feel like you're putting over a sheet over the computer, and you're saying, well, no, that's it's just individual choice.
I'm not putting a sheet over it. I'm acknowledging what's inside and saying, well, this is how that computer works. And we're
Okay.
just gonna and we're gonna operate from there. Like, so if this surgery didn't have like a ridiculous recuperation, right? If we had magical leg lengthening technology, right? Or not just length, right? So like he can be better proportioned because he's less proportioned now because his shins are just like ridiculous on like his tiny body, right? But if you had an ability to like just grow the body proportionally to like 6 foot, 6'2", whatever, and the recuperation time was like 5 minutes, what would you feel the same way about it?
No, I'd be much more sympathetic to allowing it to be a thing, and I'd be more sympathetic to your argument.
So it's just that like we don't have technology to make this easy. Like, but if someone
Yeah.
chooses to want to go through that pain, I don't. Okay, you're just gonna go out in circles now. It's okay. So, do you want to continue on? Do you want to have anything else to say?
I do. Yeah, no, I do.
Okay. Uh, okay, go. Go. Oh my god.
Their
Go.
legs and inserting metal rods into their bones to be a few inches taller, and listening to AI Batman help them overcome their pornography addictions.
You deserve real love.
Turns out the society that was built by and allegedly for men has indeed let them down. Now you might be thinking, oh look, another boo-hoo poor men video by Shoe on Head. Yes. And if you have a problem with that, tune into literally anything else. Men are in a crisis, and it seems nobody really cares. And the people who do care just seem like the people who want to sell them shit. Not me. I'm different. So before we get into this, let's quickly get into today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Holzkern. Holzkern is a young
Okay,
Austrian
I'm
company
gonna
that designs
move
unique
forward.
crafted watches and jewelry. And thank you, the viewer, as always, for not skipping the
What is your she was kind of referencing a very common response you get, not just on the left. I think just in a lot of spaces, a lot of even non-political spaces, where you try to bring up men's issues, which is just a reflexive kind of ha about it. You have to kind of put, or speaking of using the rapper metaphor, you have to wrap whatever the issue you're talking about, like in a wrapper of some other thing. We're talking about some minority, or we're talking about some like a mental illness or something. It can't just be men's issues for the sake of men's issues. Do you think that that's overblown, or do you think that that's like, do you think there's some argument to that? That when people are kind of skeptical, you know, when people start talking about how is this going to affect the men, that kind of like people's ears go up. Do you think that's earned, that's deserved, or do you think that's an overreaction?
Sorry, what is deserved? Is it deserved that people feel like? Does it make sense that people feel the need to obscure their real target, or like the response from that?
Yeah, like sort of the response, right? Like, do you think that
Oh.
people being a little suspicious when this kind of line of social critique comes up, do you think that's overblown, or do you think that it's a, you know, there's the men's rights activist and Andrew Tates of the world that it's a deserve?
Yeah, I mean, look, uh, I don't want there to be any suspicion, but it makes sense to me that there is suspicion because of the Andrew Tates, because of the whole MRA movement as it stands, right? And it's the toxicity there. So like you should look at all like of these sort of objections critically, you know, and all information you get critically, but like specifically like there's a lot of um unsavory politics that kind of try to get shoot in whatever uh, uh under the guise of like helping men, right? And it turns into like helping men is like hating women, and we don't have to do that. So you just have to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more or less. I think I would agree. I think I would definitely agree. I don't like the fact that I think I'm sympathetic to the revulsion at ever talking about the way something might affect men, but so much the conversation is poorly handled. I get it. That's just something I've been, these kind of like little rituals of having to like before you talk about the subject, be like, now I get that it's ridiculous, ha ha ha, but and then you say your real thing. I've been noticing them more and more, but I think sometimes they're deserved.
Well, okay, so that's a different thing. One second, Milton, thank you for uh using your Prime Gaming for resubbing to the channel. Awfully kind of you. Hope you're doing well, Milton, up there in Canada land. Yeah, so I don't think that we should have to obscure what we're talking about if we're talking about helping men. But it's a thing that happens in academia. There's a lot of pushback for people who are talking about helping men, when it's like, no, we should be talking about only women. Like, and somehow even approaching the idea that men might need help is some sort of betrayal of feminist ideas and shit. So yeah. Uh, so on those ends, we shouldn't have to hide it if we're talking about men. But when people receive that message, when we're giving these men help men assistance messages, right? It makes sense that people are skeptical because of all the toxicity that's out there. Okay. Let's continue.
Thank you, Holzgren, for sponsoring this video.
Oh, and go to Shuon Head's channel and click on her ads, because she made the video. So let's support her.
Thank you, the viewer, as always, for not skipping the ad.
Why are men and boys struggling? And what should we do about it?
A few new studies have come out that have shown that young men are more lonely and single than ever before. But it's not just men. The women and children, too. It's predicted 45% of women will be single and childless by 2030. But according to the media, this is a good thing. The she-economy is booming, as they say. And meanwhile, men being single is treated like this.
New study explains why some single men are having a hard time finding a new partner.
Some of the
What was
music
that look on that lady's face? Like,
Yeah, that was really weird, bro.
I feel like what was happening was there's a transition, right? This is the start of something, and she's like transitioning, like her look. It just came
Yeah, she's about to talk about all these single men. She's being like, okay,
Yeah.
single men, I hear.
I don't know, right? Maybe the last thing was about like dead pandas, and she found it funny, and then now she's like, oh, single men. I don't know, whatever. It's just weird.
Some single men are having a hard time finding a new partner.
some of the music that they listen to speaks very derogatory.
Right.
Yeah, man, stop listening to that derogatory music. Then maybe you won't be single. I don't know, I think men and women being single and lonely kind of shows there might be something wrong with society. Perhaps we should address this, not just wave it off as empowering or pathetic. According to several different
Can we
articles,
pause
I love
there?
how that's my story.
Have you this is something just very quick. This is something I've noticed is like this is a refrain specifically from like establishment liberals where they'll just be like, I actually don't think there's even a problem. I think that people just have always been lonely and we're now just asking the right questions. And I don't know. I feel like like there's no stat about suicide rates, loneliness, friendships. There's nothing that is. These people are impervious to this. It is just a constant refrain of like, this really isn't something that society should be talking about. And I don't know.
Are you talking about the derogatory music?
That's definitely part. So I think that was a more so example of my previous point. But I mean, like, there's just like going back. It's kind of like the response you get from the kind of people, the academia kind of people, where it's just this idea that's like it's just not men's issues. That's a realm that society doesn't need to fix the problems of. That's a you fix your own problems realm. And when we talk about other types of things, that's all within the realm of that's like a social problem that we can work together. But even if like 30% of men, it seems it's just like okay, that's just a thing.
Yeah. I guess I would agree that like that's how people look at it. I guess I agree with your overall point.
source. I read about it on the internet. Research shows that people from individualist countries show a greater sense of loneliness. This is linked to socioeconomic development, increased education, a shift towards white-collar jobs, and urbanization. Japan also has an issue with loneliness. In fact, they have a whole movement of people they call the hikikomori. Did I say that right?
Yeah, she did.
I don't care. Basically, postmodern hermits. Mostly young men who completely withdraw from society, secluding themselves in their rooms for months and years at a time. In 2010, there was an estimated 700,000 hikikomori in Japan. And today, it's estimated to be about 1.
This is pretty much me. Just FYI. Like, seriously, that's pretty much
I
me.
find it interesting that different societies, like you see like an echo effect, where like Japan were the first, I feel like one of the first ones to kind of name this kind of phenomenon. And I remember when you first started hearing about it, it was very much a stereotype of like, oh, this is a Japanese thing. This is a Japanese response to modernity. They're just so silly. Look at them. They're just sitting in their rooms with anime. And then 10 years later, it's like the American incel. You know what I mean? Like the great thing. I find that to be interesting.
Yeah. This is definitely but
So somebody in chat says it pretty well. Like men would rather be hermits than go to therapy. The response that most people have to that is to critique men for not wanting to go to choosing hermithood over therapy. The actual response for any other group, if you saw 30% of a group not going to something, it'd be to change the therapy to make more people want to come. Not condemn them for wanting to be hermits. It's change the therapy. Okay, well, something about again, if you're an advertiser and you feel like 30% sales fall off, are you going to go and say, oh, these stupid fucking customers for not? No, you would say, well, no, I'm going to change my sales approach so that those 30% come back. That's something I find interesting. You know, in chat, a couple people have said the same thing. You know, well, it's men who are too conservative. It's men who are choosing to not go to therapy. Again, why don't we ever at some point, men are making the decision to go down one road, not the other. Why are they doing that? It should be us. We should be changing the signposts, getting people back on the road we want them to be going on.
So for me, my circumstances were like, I had lost a job and I actually lost a girlfriend, and I was not doing well, but I eventually got over that. But then there's the problem was like getting a new job, and then there was the pandemic, and then like I started this during then, my Twitch channel and the whatnot, but like I don't know, it's therapy is not something that had really appealed to me. And again, like I got over my problems, like whatever. It just became a matter of money. But I've always been fine with socializing at all points in time. I'm always fine with doing that, but I always do it on my terms. So yeah, but I think that I would fall into this category, hikikomori. If someone were to categorize me.
Yeah, I mean, just to give my 2 cents on this, I would definitely say I'm a little bit different. I've always had a bit of a hard time socializing. I very much am reliant on having a friend who's a social butterfly who can introduce me into social environments. So I get into it. There's something I've noticed. I think to listen to your situation, and maybe you'll agree with this. You get into a position that's like comfortable enough. You have like enough friends that it's like you're not like nobody's calling you, but also there's not like too many, and you're comfortable enough to not have the impetus to like go out there and like change it. And I feel like that's like where a lot of like the kind of position you get stuck in. And as you say again, bro, I agree. I should be the kind of, there's something about a modern approach to therapy that does not speak to the mind of the modern man. I've spoke to so many one close friend in my real life that's completely disconnected from all this. They have the same exact kind of feeling that it's like they feel like they could theoretically get something out of it, but it just seems like the kind of rigmarole that you have to go, the way it's kind of set up, it just doesn't seem like it's really adaptive to the way my mind has been like socialized to work. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like that meme, men would rather do X than go to therapy. Yes, that's true. There's a truth to that, but it's like I feel like not enough people ask why. Why are so many men not wanting to go to therapy. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Hello, John D in chat. They asked, isn't loneliness a non-gender issue? Why focus on men? Well, of course we like. Why wouldn't we do that, right? Like,
Why don't we ask that question for any other demographic? That's all. That's what I would turn that around. Just turn that around. Why do we ask it for
Exactly.
any other demographic? We would never even think of asking that.
Yeah, like diabetes or whatever affects like everyone, right? But like it can be more pronounced in like the African American population. Why? Because of lack of resources there. And so the way we deal with that will be different um than how we might deal with it with a white population or a white resourced population, because maybe you could also divide it in terms of classes, right? Like we'd have to look at these things and then concentrate on those groups. But if we pretend that all these groups are the same, it's different. Like why women might feel lonely can be distinctly different than why men could feel lonely. And if we pretend that these groups are the same, then we're not gonna adequately address the problem. I think it's pretty simple.
So Kobe is always on the stop. I'm reading a comment here. Always on the stop blaming men for their own problems. But the difference between men's problems and women's problems is that men's problems cause both. Women got off their asses, and it's called feminism. Men have got to do the same thing. Get off our asses, organize, and fix shit. That's just like a huge like, does anybody actually think that's true? Do you think that the history of the last 60 years is that it was just women who in the 1950s they just decided to get together? No one. That's obviously not the case. This is obviously a larger social trend. There's obviously larger social trends behind why feminism arose in so many different countries at the exact same time, 1950s, 1960s. This is obviously feminism was something. If no man wanted feminism, there wouldn't be feminism. Men are half the country, women are half the country. That's the same for every country because that's the same for the species. That's an obviously oversimplified thing. The idea that one side's problems cause all the problems for the other side is just it's not even a binary thinking. It's completely a one-sided thinking. I don't know. I didn't even know. And even if that is the case, then okay, then I'm advocating that we change the way in which we organize. Men need to organize ourselves better. Okay, I concede everything you say. You're right. I'm so sorry. You're right. The women did this. Thank you, women. Thank you for doing feminism. My bad. I forgot about feminism. Men just need meninism. Why can't we have meninism? And I'm just advocating for the creation of meninism. And if the first step of meninism is saying men's problems are not unique to women's problems, okay, well, meninism, the first Congress of the Meninists has dissolved the Meninist Congress in our first Congress. Our first act is the dissolving of the Congress. Thanks, guys. Wonderful. Good job. Like, come on. Use our brains, people. Come on.
I think it's pretty simple that like we would like for different groups we would look at that problem, analyze it, because or else we'll miss something, right? Yes, we can create a generalized response to like the loneliness epidemic. We can do that, right? And I'm sure that generalized response will help a lot of people. But there are gonna be others who are left out because we're not actually addressing their issues. The pressures that men face that might cause them to be lonely are distinctly different because men have a different role in our society, whether we like that or not. That's simply the case. So we want to be able to look at that and address it. Like I don't know. I feel like it's really simple and reasonable, but all right. We'll move past that rather than yelling at members of the audience all day, which is always fun. But okay, let's go back.
In hikikomori in Japan. And today it's estimated to be about 1.55 million. And because of things like this, people aren't having babies, so Japan's population has been in a sharp decline since 2011. It's gotten...
Yeah, but that's like... I mean, that's one of the problems, but like Japan has a lot of other issues that cause the falling birth age. So I want to be very clear on that, right? Like there's no way this doesn't contribute. So I acknowledge that, but Japan has a whole list of issues that are causing the falling birth rate, and the falling birth rate isn't nearly as bad as people think it is. But all right, moving forward.
So bad that Japan even produces videos of live-action women staring into the camera to help the hikikomori learn to cope with eye contact and reintegrate them back into society. So basically, if you want to know America's future, look no further than Japan. A lot of people, including myself, blame this partially on the rise of social media and technology. RIP
not to be too mean to Shunhit, I like Shunhit, but there's something kind of funny that she's like, this is a video, which is a woman smiling at the camera talking to you, talking about other videos of women smiling at the camera talking to you, criticizing those other videos. I know this is a great big circle. I don't know. Obviously, this is the content of this video is very different. I just thought that was kind of funny.
To the king. Although technology makes things easier, it can also make us more atomized. Why go to the mall when I can just tap, 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 buy a new microphone and have it shipped to me in a day? Why hang out with friends when I can get all my social interaction I need from Twitter and streamers? Why go on dates and bother meeting women when I can just tap, 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 Google big boob and get 2 million results? Or see my high school crush's holes on OnlyFans for only $5. Instant dopamine, instant satisfaction, and hey, who even needs a real woman when you could just have an AI girlfriend? We're f***ed. We're so f***ed. Dating apps really are the great Satan, and I'm convinced they've completely broken men's brains. Women on dating apps are picky. Women in general are picky, and I mean, naturally we are pickier. You know, we're the ones who carry the babies. At least for now. But on dating apps, you have to admit, it's a little insane. It's safe to say that the commodification of love and the window shopping of dating apps probably has to do a lot with the rise of lonely single men. Men are not just lonely when it comes to dating, they're lonely when it comes to friendship too. According to Vox, Americans are currently in a friendship.
I just want to say that with the dating apps thing, which like they're problematic for a whole list of reasons. So, you know, like dating apps are just like the real world magnified by 10, right? The idea that, like, you know, because the thing of dating apps is women are inundated with messages and men are like, there's a scarcity, right? There's so many more men looking than women on the dating apps, right? Like, that's the club, right? Like, women being inundated with men approaching them, and then men not having women approach them, right? There's a lot more men there looking for a woman within the that club situation than there are women looking for a guy. Like, that's like real life, just magnetized by 10. So like, I don't want to say this is to say that people think that the problem of a dating app is some sort of unique issue that's brand new to the world. No, this is exactly what we were doing before, right? Just like magnified. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the steel man of the position would be that things like dating apps put salt in these pre-existing wounds. They make them worse. There are negative externalities to the ways that humans mate select, ways that are very bias heavy, ways that engage in things we don't like. And the idea with that dating apps is exasperate those, make those worse.
Yeah, fair enough.
Lonely when it comes to
Oh, very
friendship
positive.
too. According
I do, and I think I know what you meant when you said this, but I'd be curious what you think about where I take this. I think that there's similarity. You know, they exasperate already existing problems in the real world. But dating apps and the way your mind is working when you're choosing whether you're not going to swipe left and right. I can't speak for women. I can only speak for man. But I'm telling you, I don't think it's the same. It's a different process than if it is in person. I'm thinking about and I'm engaged with different human beings in a different way when I'm in the same room with them, whether it's a club environment, a party environment, whatever, versus if I just have a picture. I have pictures of them. I'm swiping through. I have a little bio that's telling me just little things about them. There's like something about like the presence of the individual that I think really changes the dynamic. There are people that if I look at a picture of them, I don't view them as attractive or interesting at all, but I know them in real life. And I know the way they carry themselves, I find to be very interesting and attractive, both from a platonic sense and a romantic sense. And if you don't get that. You don't have the firsthand. You don't have that presence on the app. It's whatever pictures you can take, whatever bio you can pop up. I think that makes it kind of strange. It marketizes it in a weird way.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
This is an observation. I've used dating apps for about 2 weeks and I kind of lost interest in it. But that was at least my view. Is I felt like I was like buying a computer part or buying a car. I'm like looking at these women and I'm being like, oh, that doesn't have the features I want. I want one that likes anime. And it felt strange. It felt hollow. I don't know.
Yeah, I use dating apps for a lot longer than that. And I didn't use this particular strategy, but the strategy to use, which also makes the problem for women even tougher, is just to swipe right on everyone, right? Like accept everyone, because you get so few matches unless you are one of the top 1% of men in terms of attractiveness, which I am not. Right, I'll say that. I mean, I'm top 0.1%. No. Unless you're one of those like ultra trads, you will get very, very, very few matches. So you just like swipe right on all of them. I didn't do this, but it makes sense to like hope you get a match and then from there filter out. And then most of the people you're gonna get are bots. I know that from experience too. So it's like unbelievable. So yeah, it's tough on dating apps all around. But I hear you. You're talking about the presence, and there are people who I might even find not physically attractive, but like I'm attracted to, because of a whole list of things. But I mean, well, I guess there are ways to get around such a thing. We could kick it old school, like do you remember I mean, like, we're both too young for this. But they used to like trade VHSs. People would like record themselves like on a VHS tape, and then like send it into a company, and then they would send it out like for dating, and they would just like talk about themselves. You would see a person in motion, um, and like it was Tinder like slowed down like on the order of weeks. But
Yeah. It's like the male chess, like male, like playing chess and male, but the version of
Yeah.
that for Tinder.
Yeah, exactly. Playing, yes, exactly that. On the order of weeks, but like that's what people did. They would exchange these VHS, and it'd be like a whole. So you get a VHS with a whole list of like singles talking about themselves, and you can still find these things on the internet, and it's a gold mine of memes. So check it out. But anyway, like that's like a person like presenting themselves rather than like a static image with like a quick bio that is usually not very helpful. My bio is extremely helpful, but whatever. But yeah, so let's move forward.
Men. Men are not just lonely when it comes to dating, they're lonely when it comes to friendship too. According to Vox, Americans are currently in a friendship recession, and men are being hit the hardest. The percentage of men who reported having at least 6 close friendships fell in half since the 90s. 1 in 5 men say they have no close friendships. Looking at all these statistics, the explosion of figures like Andrew Tate is not surprising at all.
I believe being a man is a blessing because it starts so different. I believe that every man.
Yep.
I would definitely say before they go into the Tate, because I feel like there's a lot of like there's gonna be a lot of funny things with this. I for the friendship thing, something I've noticed is it's really 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 easy to be alone. Right? It's really, really easy nowadays to just always have some podcast in your ear, to always have some video to be watching. There's like infinite games. The games have match player or multiplayer matchmaking, so you can just press the button and you have teammates. Like I've noticed that. I feel like it's like when you back in my day, you'd have to load up the Xbox. You'd have to have your friend come over, and there'd be no darn multiplayer without your friend coming over. And obviously, there's a truth to that, right? You had to like engage with the community more, in which that's like nowadays, like you can just DoorDash it, you can just multiplayer it, you can just you can if you feel a little bit lonely, if you watch a movie and you kind of want to have the feeling of like talking about the movie with your friends, you can download a podcast and you can listen to 3 friends talk about the movie, and they can kind of shit talk and get drunk and talk about it, and it kind of feels like you simulate feeling in your brain. And it's when the easy option is there, it requires like self-discipline to do the other thing. And I feel like it just like perhaps one of the issues of why like it's not necessarily like a problem of men, a problem of women, feminism, whatever. It's just like it used to be that we heavily you had to be social to be a human more than you had to be a social to be a human now. You can be a very antisocial person and nowadays and be a human and just like live your life. I don't know if I'm right, if that's like you just agree with it or not.
I hear you. Well, and just quickly about the video games thing, like part of that to blame it really is with like publishers. There are a few games that come out, even if you want to, that have couch co-op, right, or couch multiplayer, that they force you to get in the network. Your friend got to go back to his house, and play. Like there's just no options there.
Yeah,
which really sucks. It really sucks. In fact, I just recently got a game that it literally advertised itself. Hey, we have couch co-op. This used to be not used to be a thing, right? That they wouldn't like specifically advertise that in that way, but it's an exception to the rule at this point to be able to have that. So, but I guess the only thing is I want to make space for people. This world, this current state of affairs isn't all bad, right? There are disabled people who had trouble like interacting with the rest of the world for various reasons that now are more connected with the world than they've ever been before, and they are less lonely. We have options to connect people, like again, I'd count like one of those hikikomori guys, but I haven't felt lonely, right? Because I have all these distractions, those things that people would say were all bad, but they were great, for me, and like, so that would count as the quote unquote easy option, but for me there was never. And I acknowledge it might be different from others, right? So I'm not saying this like the case for everyone else. Like I always had the option of like going and interact, and I was never afraid of that option. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just describing the situation you're talking about. But like I like having all these other options to connect with people, connect with you, like Kobe, who I never would met. We'd never have this unless we had this technology to connect each other from across the country.
You know, I totally agree. That's a complaint that I read about a lot. The more that I'm reading about people who lived in the 1930s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, is people complaining that it's like it felt like they could only ever get one position on things. They were born in the South, and the only thing that the only position they had on anything was just a segregationist. And that was it. And there was like left segregationists and right segregationists, but there was no actual you couldn't actually read a newspaper because you would have to go to places. You'd have to drive 2 hours to a city where that newspaper was sold, or you'd have to like send in a mail order thing to get that news to get some magazine sent to your house. And that the opposite problem. I've always been inundated with every possible position on every possible subject. Everything, you can instantly find any kind of a position, and so I really value that. I like, I'm a bookwormish kind of person, so I think there's a lot of good. It's not all bad, but I think that it's like there should be, I'm sure you would agree with this. There should be a hard nosed look at the negatives along with the positive.
I'm not sure if I was talking to you, or maybe I saw this. I think I saw this in the video, but maybe you said it. I don't know. Like, were you the one who talked to me about like how the geography of an urban environment affects people's behaviors, and like there are cities that are known to have like certain like characteristic gathering spots. Would you have a conversation about this?
I don't think so, but I'm interested.
Okay, so I saw it in the video, right? One of those things I do in my room by myself, right? I watch YouTube a lot, and I'm educated. But yeah, so someone made this point, and it was a good video. And maybe I saved it. I think I might have saved it. I'll have to look for it. Maybe we can watch it. But the gist of it talks about like the urban landscape and how we can design the urban landscape specifically for to create interactions or to discourage interactions, right? And the focus of this video, it was video, was Robert Moses, for instance. Like Robert Moses in New York. Are you familiar with him?
Yes, yeah, I'm aware of him, yeah.
Yeah, like huge racist. And he wanted to like disenfranchise the black population, and so he used various means to do so. But they take it even further back to Napoleon, right? And what he did, right? Like after like putting down like the French Revolution, right? Or like ending that like reign. Like he had a guy, an architect who like redesigned Paris, and he redesigned it in multiple interesting ways. Like when I went to Paris, I remember like being told that like the streets were widened so that like people couldn't like erect barriers, anymore, so that if the army needed to come through and break up a protest, they could. You couldn't have narrow streets where the people could just like cordon off an area in a protest. Specifically, they have wide streets for that. But another thing that people are know, like when people think of Paris, is the on street cafes, right? They have these cafes that are just outside, and they have these sidewalks. The way their sidewalks are different, at least in most of the city, like they're rounded. The way the buildings terminate, they're kind of rounded, and they give like this extra space, and so it encourages something to be put there. And what people put there are cafes, and people interact with them, and the city is known for that. And there are other examples of this in other places where these cities are known for these interactions, and they define a city. And if you don't have that, well, then people have a hard time like interacting with each other, and it all comes back to design.
I know. I think the entire time you're talking, you just made me think about something. I'm sure you've heard this critique. People saying there's no more second spaces anymore. There's not as many like movie theaters and bars and lounges around where people can kind of go and just randomly socialize. That's a huge complaint of people my age. That's like everywhere you have to it's like a restaurant or a place where you have to have like a reservation. There's very few places where you can go and spend like $5, get a drink, and then you can kind of like sit in the place for like 3 or 4 hours. What you're talking about is that exact place, a city designed with the intention that people are going to spend a little bit of money and then spend a lot of attention on a social environment.
I have to find this video for you, because this video talks more than that. So this was a video that was talking more about like teenagers and how we as adults have made spaces where teenagers are not allowed and they can't socialize. And they talk about teenage loneliness, basically, right? Like one of the complaints is that teenagers don't have a place to hang around. So like Sean had brought up the mall previously. Well, first of all, there are no malls. Like indoor malls are gone, right? So that would be the place where people would like learn to socialize. And even then, for the ones that are left, like those teenagers are being are pushed out more and more, because adults don't like young kids, right? Because they're a pain in the ass. And that creates a problem. And so there are like what are the options? Well, Dave and Buster's is super fucking expensive. Like $50 to have a good time with all of your friends. And a lot of kids don't have that kind of money to hang around. There isn't like the skating rink is an example they brought up, where you could just like hang out for like $5 like on a Friday night and have a good time. These things are gone. And there are other examples. I had another example that was different. Shit, it's escaped me. But I will try to find this video. I thought I saved it. Hopefully I did, because it was really, really good. Let me see. Oh, I found it. I found it actually just now. It may be something we should look at later. But yeah, no, I'll definitely share that for you. Let me share this with you right now before I fucking forget. I'm gonna send this your way, and we'll take a look at that later. Okay, so let's continue on here. And if I think of that other example, because I had another example of this space. Take a look at that. All right, let's go here.
I believe being a man is a blessing because it starts so difficult. I believe that every man is born without any value at all. I think that the world's never going to think you're important unless you make yourself important.
And recently, a new study came out about how young men are moving towards the right. And every other month, we, the liberal, sockdem, leftist, whatever you want to call the space online, performs the same song and dance. What's wrong with men? Why is this happening? Why don't we have a leftist Andrew Tate? We need to push men to the left. Andrew Tate rarely, if ever, talks about politics. Andrew Tate talks about men, and the left only talks about men when they talk about Andrew Tate. A few months ago, during one of the monthly song and dances, some progressive people I follow made the mistake of addressing men's issues, and the even bigger mistake of pointing their finger at their own spaces for not doing enough to address said men's issues.
Recently, there were some statistics by healthcare company Cigna indicating that men are the loneliest generation. And addressing it doesn't mean that you turn your back on issues pertaining to women, but it does mean that we should be focused on what it is in society that is leading to this epidemic, what the left can do to offer solutions, and how we can basically fight back against the more nefarious figures who have filled the void that men are struggling with.
Want me to spot?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. There's like 2 seconds ago in the video, she was like, the left can only, Andrew Tate talks about men. The left talks about men when they're talking about politics. And it's just funny, somebody in chat says, when have men not mostly been conservative? It's like, bro, leftists don't talk about men through the political lens 2023 challenge level fucking giga impossible, but literally impossible, Dark Souls level, Armored Core 6, hard difficulty level. I don't know, it's just something that's funny. I also think it's very funny. What is the leftist advice for men? Well, men just got to pull up their bootstraps. Men just need to decide to not be misogynists and to decide to not be single anymore. What is Andrew Tate's fucking advice for men? You have to be, no one's going to love you until you make them love you. All right. You have to stand up on your bootstraps. Okay. I don't know. I find it kind of interesting, kind of a horseshoeish. There's some kind of horseshoe nature to this. I don't know.
Fair enough.
People like Jordan Peterson and what have you. Now, recently, Vosh, who's a popular streamer, had tweeted this thread that I think is really, really important to address. He writes, I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't.
The responses to these tweets and this content were very normal, level-headed, and respectful. Me when I lie. LMAO, cry about it. Boo f***ing who? Oh no, poor widow men having problems. Boo f***ing who? Grow the f*** up then. Have men considered being smarter? I'm enjoying all these sad little moids and their sad little tweets about their sad, pathetic lives. Sounds like a personal problem. Is the lack of compassion for men in the room with us right now? Maybe men are just not good people then. I'm so fucking tired of people trying to make male loneliness a huge societal problem. Yeah, no, their fifis are not my responsibility, and I shouldn't have to be punished because they can't get their shit together as human beings. Grow the up. Why are we trying to win these entitled little predators over? The left isn't for them. That's why they go right in the first place. We're all lonely and alienated.
Okay,
It's
bro,
young men
pause
going
that
to
right
the
there.
alt-right.
Okay, this tweet right here could literally be written about black boys in the 1990s. Little predators. I'm making a prediction. Little predators was a term used. I mean, that's literally about one word away from super predators, which was a word used to describe 14-year-old black boys in the 1990s. But I feel like this is like kind of what I'm talking about. It's just like this, like it is just a assumption. The first move is an assumption. There is something broken about these people. They are deciding to do this, and everything else, any kind of discussion beyond that, is sort of giving too much to the people that are deciding to be bad. And I feel like it's just so unhelpful. Again, like imagine if this was like a marketing team talking about a failing product, and they said it shouldn't be my problem that they're not smart enough to buy Bud Light. It's like, actually, no, it's actually, you're in the marketing team. It's your job. Actually, that's your entire job.
This is why American liberalism to me like seems like so much close, like seems like center right than left, right? Because like this seems indistinguishable from conservatives, right? From a quote unquote center right perspective, this individualistic look at society, like atomizing it rather than like looking at it as a whole. This is what liberals will do. Yes, that's the liberal thing. Liberals won't look at systemic issue. They'll look for an individual issue. And rather than like progressive and leftists who look at things from a wider perspective. And then you get these answers, right? Then this all makes sense if it's just them, and we don't have to worry about them. Unless, of course, it's my problem, and then we have to look at it as a group, you know? Like, why isn't the government helping me at that point? You know, then they'll reach out for the government, and they'll expect a response for their issues. All right, I'll just keep going. You're not talking.
I agree. Fuck liberalism. I'm annoyed. I'm done. Post-modernity. Let's get to it. Fucking meta-modernism. That's a new thing I'm reading about. Okay, I'm done. We're done. We're moving on. You guys can, yeah, okay. There's no such thing as society, just individuals in the family. That's what Margaret Thatcher said, and that response right there is the two responses to the men problem. It's either men have decided to be conservative, or there are bad parents that socialize their men wrong, and that's it. That's the two answers.
Right in droves. The problem isn't our messaging, it's them. It's literally not our problem. Men flock to Andrew Tate not because they're lonely, but because they're bigots. Hope this helps. Nah, it's just misogynists being louder than before and not getting laid. LOL. Cry harder, losers. 90% of all homicides recorded worldwide were committed by male perpetrators. We should just get rid of all males, to be honest. This includes trans women, as they still retain male violence. By the way, you know the Tumblr feminists who were like, all men are sexist and rapists, male tears, penises are evil, blah 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 back in the day? Well, this is them now. Should've just let me cook back then. Listen up, chuckle. I'm white, socially awkward, autistic, in my 40s, ugly, overweight, crippled, got a weird balding pattern, and have bad skin. You know what I didn't do? Choose to become a fascist, because I recognize most of the sort that look like me are the problem. I may be hideous.
Yeah, I was like, this is a big element. I've been going to notice is a deep self-hatred that many white liberals in general have. White liberals are deeply involved with white guilt, and white men or male liberals are deeply, deeply obsessed with this. So again, like the very last sentence there, I recognize sort of the problem is that people like me are the problem. That is an underlying logic to a lot of the individualistic response to the men's issue is this idea that it's like, I'm mature enough to recognize that part of me is fundamentally broken. It's on you to be mature enough to recognize that part of you is also fundamentally broken. It's like a symbol of my maturity that I'm willing to admit that it's actually just a me issue. And I find that to be like, that requires a level of self-loathing, in my opinion.
I'd have to think a response to this. I probably agree with you mostly on this, but I feel like there's more to this, but
yeah, I mean, just thinking about a counter response, even to myself, that I would say there is you can learn to love your own self-destruction, and unlearning to love your own self-destruction is improvement. And part of that is recognizing that part of you, in the last sentence, part of you is the problem. Part of us is the issue. Within men are taught that a patriarchal, toxically masculine mindset that is spoken to by the Andrew Tates of the world. Part of the issue is men deciding and finding ways to socialize other men to make the decision to not give in to that will to dominate. But that's not the driving seat. That's not the primary motivation.
Yeah, I feel like my issue with this is like not the last sentence, but the sentence before that. It says, "You know what I didn't do? Choose to become a fascist." That like at least in this context, it ignores the actual tweet, that Vosh's initial tweet. Like he simply said the obvious thing, that the right is talking to them, that they're having a conversation with these kids and molding them, right? It's not like he specifically said, right? Like they're not choosing to become a fascist, right? Like, and it's obvious, yeah. These kids aren't thinking about like protecting the motherland and like finding an enemy that should be destroyed. Like they're not thinking on that level. It's just that the people who are approaching them, people who are in their spaces, are like that. And yeah, you want to say something?
Wait, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to restart my camera really quick here. I was very scared that my internet went out, but I think I'm fine. No, something you say though, that while I fix.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, but so like that's like the simple matter of it all. Like it's ignoring the fact that we have a whole right-wing infrastructure they built over the last like 10 years or so, like led by Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon headed this charge, right? When Gamergate happened, he realized this is an opening, right? There are a lot of disaffected men, and they're in these gaming spaces. So why don't we go to them, go where they are, and just talk with them? Start introducing our ideas to them, and it has worked. And it was simple enough. We could just talk to them too. But we'd have to build that infrastructure. But first, we have to realize there's a problem in the first place. And if we just say that, well, men's loneliness is the same as female loneliness or women's loneliness, then we won't actually realize that. Because women, by and large, are not in these spaces, right? And that's because, well, men drive them out. I understand that, right? But this is not the locus of their issues, right? Like this is won't be where you'll find women in other places, and then you can address it there. But here, yeah, like you need male role models. Not just talking about like men's issues with them, just like life. But yeah. Anyway, I'll keep going while our friend Kobe.
Oh, sorry. I can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to be on my phone, hopefully, for just 1 second here. I'm just restarting my wonderful, I love Xfinity, the wonderful Xfinity internet that I love so much. So I'm watching. I'm sorry, and my audio quality has dropped here.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll just continue on.
Recognize most of the sort that look like me are the problem. I may be hideously ugly and pathetic, but at least I'm not a fascist. Thank you for your input, buddy. You're, really helping the situation. The reason young men flock to alt-right MRA movements is because the left gives brain-dead advice to young men. We need to be more compassionate to them, for our own sake. I'm sorry, but how is respect women brain-dead advice? What advice? Don't rape? Don't be a rapist is bad advice? Help, I have no friends or community, I feel suicidal. Have you considered not raping? Act like a decent fucking human being. It's not hard. Is brain dead advice? Brain dead advice like get consent and don't be a Nazi and women are people. Walking up to men struggling with loneliness and depression like
kids, don't be racist.
Incredible. Here's my actual advice I would give to my teen boys as a leftist. 1. Always get enthusiastic consent. 2. Save the planet. 3. Don't say that. It's actually kind of racist. Like, what the f is this? How does this address men and their issues? It doesn't. Why does their advice always seem to be, become a liberal? Hey men, here's how to fix all your problems. Agree with me politically. Men flock to the MRA movement because they're the largest beneficiaries of MRA shit. Imagine saying women flock to women's rights activism because they're the biggest beneficiaries of women's rights. Like, no f***ing shit. Let's be honest. Aside from procreation purposes, men have become obsolete. Most women can find other methods of achieving orgasm without a man there. And speaking as a man, most of us are horrid to be around, and I don't blame any woman for just saying, no thanks.
I wish that guy luck on his personal journey of gender dysmorphia. That's all that I'm going to say. Just, I wish him luck on his fucking whatever he's dealing with.
Yeah. Holy fuck. Holy shit. Yeah. If you think that a vibrator is better than you, then you're probably correct in terms of your performance in bed. And if you're sure that all women are lesbians, then I don't know. I'm sure they tell you that because you're pretty horrid to be around, as you admit.
It's so funny, like, bro, it's so funny. It's like, I feel like in the 1960s, like the idea that feminists are going to teach women to be lesbians that get all their sexual pleasure from vibrators. That was like something that the John Birch Society would say. And now you're like a good liberal. You're like a good white liberal. If you're like, actually, I'm no better than a vibrator. Actually, men have become obsolete by the technological machine.
Brilliant work here. But yeah, I'm gonna leave you to it, buddy. I'm gonna leave you to it.
Oh my god, dude, this is what every Just Pearly Things tweet looks like to me. Just with the genders swapped. This is pathetic. You know what fixes male loneliness? Jerking off. As a man, I'll say this. Sit down, shut up, and beat one out. You'll feel better. I promise. Yeah, guys, just beat one out. Just
pause this really quick too.
Watch porn. Batman.
I this is something that I'm like, this is like a greater social theory I have, but I personally believe that like Andrew Tate the sort of like liberal male hating industrial complex and the porn industry exists. That's like an evil industrial complex that exists behind the scenes, where it's like it's like you sort of like society produces these maladapted, depressed young men. One side of the society says, "You fucking Nazi! Why the fuck are you being a fucking white supremacist?" When they say like, "I wish I could, have like a well-paying job," and then the other side is like teaches them to be like little heroic, Jordan Peterson knights. And then there's like the dark cellar on the street corner, which, as they say, if you're rejected by society, you can always go to the XXX district, the red light district, and sort of just drowned away your sorrows in an endless endless onslaught of e-girls. I feel like there's they all kind of feed off each other. It's kind of a self. They make. You ever heard the saying the church's best customer is the devil, because the devil keeps the church in business or whatever?
No, I haven't heard that, but no.
Yeah, like the devil and the church are secretly best friends because they keep each other in business. You know what I mean? Like the devil always
like criminals and cops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that dynamic, you see that a lot, where it's like on one side you have you have a social force that creates a lot of disaffected young men, and you have another social force that preys on disaffected young men.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move forward with this.
Feel better, I promise. Yeah, guys, just beat one out. Just off. Just watch porn. Batman will be very disappointed in all of you. It's so funny how men feel entitled to a girlfriend. No, you sexist freak. When one side is like, wanting a girlfriend is sexist entitlement, and the other side is like, here's how to get a girlfriend. I don't know, bro. What happened to males just kicking the bucket? Now they just come on here and try to make their loneliness and misery into some social justice issue. Oh, trust me, men are still kicking the bucket. And when they're not giving mind-blowing advice like just to be a liberal, they're outright dismissing men's issues completely. It's not our job to educate them. Since men created the problem, they need to take steps to fix it. We have other things.
Yeah, it's the not our job to educate them thing, right? Like I'm noticing these responses are just like a whole bunch of like liberal talking point misfires, right? Like they are talking points that might be adequate in some other contexts, but like they're just like mistaking everything, right? Like this is I wish I had like a snappy way to describe this, but it's I think they're looking at us through whatever lens they particularly want to write. Like it's not our job to educate them. So I'll just use an example, right? This is a thing that you will hear from like minorities, right, within the liberal context. That like we don't have to educate white people to be like non-racist. And it's like not a job of any individual black person to just be like a white person's a racial Sherpa, like, and get them through their haze of racial ignorance. It isn't any particular person's job. That's fair, right? But on the other hand, someone's got to do it, and so like we got to help all of ourselves like overcome our ignorance of people who aren't like us, right? That's a thing that happens. So that's where that would come in. But like, why would you need to use that in this area, right? Like, it's not our job to educate them. Like, what
is the R? So is the R in this sense, the OUR? Is that referring to all of society? It's not all of society's job to educate them, half of society. Just think about how insane that is. You know what I mean?
It feels like I assumed that was a female responding or a woman responding, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's problematic to say the least. All right, let's continue on.
Them. Since men created the problem, they need to take steps to fix it. We have other things to care about. Men can figure out their own problems that they created. Again, it's not women's jobs to change how men are socialized.
Can you pause this really quick?
Issue, and y'all.
I think again, like this is like another kind of like a weird liberal, like I guess I got just probably my term, like a weird liberalization of this idea. Individuals that are representatives of a group do not represent the group. Men, the currently existing men, didn't create the patriarchy, even if currently existing men benefit or uphold the patriarchy. And that heuristic of like, well, if you created the system, It's not our job to help you fix this. That's just again, like I'm saying, that there are contexts with which that can be used and be a thoughtful thing. But it's just a heuristic as a rule of thumb to apply to any problem is like just complete nonsense. Bell Hook. This is something I thought about earlier when you were talking. Bell Hook, who's a Black feminist author, she writes about this in her book Will to Change. She says young boys look to us adults to learn how to be in society. One of the reasons they follow misogynistic things is because they see adults acting misogynist, and they copy their fathers, they copy their uncles. It's no one else's job but then us to educate these people that pick up on the pre-existing social norms that we leave for them. So yeah, I don't know.
All right, continuing on.
You'll need to address that amongst yourselves. Men created their own
See,
problem.
hold on. Going back to this one. Again, it's not women's jobs to change how men are socialized. It's a man issue, and y'all need to address that amongst yourselves. This is why this is just like the other comment, and it like this one time they're making it clear that it's from a female perspective. That's exactly what I thought previously. There must be like a woman saying that. They're like, it's not our problem, but yeah.
It's a man issue, and y'all need to address that amongst yourselves. Men created their own problems. Men can solve their own problems. The left is busy. Why does the well-being of other people concern me? Leftist, by the way. It's all systemic issues and societal factors and blah 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 until it's a man and then suddenly it's pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. This problem is just a consequence of the patriarchy. Now take a wild guess about which gender created the patriarchy. Solve your own problems and leave.
And that's a brilliant understanding of the word patriarchy, right? That is literally the individual men who create the patriarchy. That's like that's like a basic like fifth grader's understanding of the patriarchy. That is just like a collection of men, and men are like rather than looking at it as like an overall system, that empowers men. That like a set of cultural standards that we all buy into, that we all create, that we all uphold. Right? But which gender created the patriarchy? Actually, probably both. Probably both. Really? Like, women helped along the way. Women maintain it now. Women fight for the patriarchy as it stands. But like, I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know. It's just so brain dead.
Again, this is a central theme to Bell Hook's 2004 book, The Will to Change, that there are ways that even she talks about how she knows there are feminist single mothers that she knows who are trying very hard to raise anti-patriarchal boys that end up inadvertently recreating the logic of patriarchy in their sons because we live in a patriarchy. It's really hard to not ever use the logic of patriarchy in a patriarchal society because, as you're saying here, it's not one person. It's tons of people. It's not. It's all of us.
It's all of us. Exactly. Like, this is like, please don't be this type of person. Please don't be this type of person. This is like I read, like, I watched some videos about the patriarchy, some YouTube videos about the patriarchy, and then I got this, and I'm gonna go out into the world and I'm gonna show people how smart I am on Twitter. Like, don't be that guy. Moving on.
Women alone. These people rightly mock the bootstraps rhetoric until the subject is a man, and then it's bootstraps all the way down. They would never talk about any other group this way. It's wild. And it's kind of like both sides are telling men to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but one is like, I'll show you how, and the other is like, fuck off. And when they're not telling men to straight up fuck off, they're giving the 200 IQ answer that nobody has ever heard before. Just show your emotions, bro. And I'm not dismissing this problem, okay? I've made videos talking about this. Oh, you're crying at your grandfather's funeral? Okay, faggot. And studies have shown that men are scared to be vulnerable, even around the homies. And can you blame them when the media says stupid like this? Fellas, is it woke to open up to your fellow men and discuss history? Men are socialized to believe strength, dominance, and stoicism are behaviors of a real man. Is it any surprise that men are lonely and have less friends nowadays? You have to be vulnerable to make friends. Don't tell me there aren't systemic problems affecting men. Now, while a lot of this may be true, men have been socialized this way for centuries, and this is all relatively a new phenomena. Toxic masculinity has existed forever. If anything, there's less toxic masculinity nowadays. The cultural embrace of like gender nonconformity, femboys, Harry Styles in a dress, Barbie movie, blah 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 blah. My point is, toxic masculinity did not just appear in the mid-2010s, but social media did, and the internet did, and the rise of dating apps did, and the housing crisis, and living in a country where the wealth inequality is worse than it was during the Gilded Age. That all happened recently. Oh my god, the privileged life these poor little boys must have, that their biggest problem is being lonely, i.e. so insufferable that nobody wants to sleep with them. So much more pressing than the poor distribution of wealth causing people to suffer food and housing insecurity.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
like,
like pause that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the second part, like, do you not see that, like, that's like what, how would you, like, what would be some of the negative effects of a society by which resources are really negative or really poorly distributed? What if like people stopped like pairing off and stopped having friends? Man, wouldn't that be dystopic? Oh shit! And you look around, yeah, like it is true. One of the, it is a downstream effect of those things, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, part of my problem with like being hikikomori, right, was that like I was non-resourced. I didn't have if I had a bunch of resources, then I could have tackled my issues in so many different ways, right? And I could afford to be out there with everyone else, because part of the problem is I really couldn't afford to hang out, because I didn't have money coming in. So that's
a huge thing for me too. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
right?
that's a class element. This is something I was noticing. A lot of it. So Destiny, the streamer, has started trying to kind of be a voice for men, for so to speak, in some of these spaces. And I think he's doing a very good job. But a blind spot that he has is one of the things. I'm speaking for myself here. One of the things that makes it hard for me to engage, not just with my friends, and as you're saying, with dating, is the money aspect of it. Going out and hanging out with my friends can be anywhere from a $10 night to an $80 night, and shit's very expensive. And obviously that takes some self-control. You know what I mean? You can decide to go and spend $80. I'm not saying you have to, but some part of like being in the social group is everybody agrees to go to the bar. You either agree to go to the bar or you go home and you're no longer in the social group for the night. And then when you apply that to dating, it's very easy if you have, like you say, you have lots of resources. It's very easy to take a ton of people out on dates, to go on 3 or 4 dates a month. I cannot afford to go on 3 or 4 dates a month. I can afford to go on maybe 2 dates a month, really nice ones. And again, there's a self-control element of this. Not every date needs to be a 5-star restaurant. But again, a society that makes it very easy to go on lots of nice restaurant dates is a society where more people are going to date. A society that makes it easy for people to hang out at the roller rink are going to be a society where more people become friends because they hung out at the roller rink. We have a society that makes it easy to order DoorDash Buffalo Wild Wings, watch porn, and play the newest video game. We have a society that makes it easier to watch, like a self-hating, a piece of media that tells you why the world's ending, a conspiracy theory documentary, at home. So,
this is exactly it. Like, I really want to watch it. I want you to watch that video I sent you. About third spaces.
Yeah, no, that was the term I was trying to think about, is third spaces. That was the term.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's perfect. But yeah, like what I was gonna say in response to you, you're talking about, well, 2 things. First of all, like 2 dates a month, like Kobe's a king. I can't afford that much. You're really sub to the channel. And your super chats and hype chats, if you want us to read your comments, that'd be helpful. If you want me to go out on dates. But in any case, there is oh yeah, you said like from $10 to $80 to go out, right? Well, I would have that self-control, right? I have no problem like not spending money. But do you always want to be the guy not spending money? Like I remember going to restaurants and just getting water, right? Oh, we got free bread, I'll take that free bread. And you can do that every time, but do you want to do that every time?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, listen, the restaurants are they literally are designed to make it hard. It's not like a bar. Most places are designed that you can't not order something. You kind of are really encouraged to. Yeah, no, that's a really big thing. And I think it fuels a lot of this so much of the discussion on Red Pill podcasts is this idea of, well, I don't want these gold digging women to take advantage of me and take me out on 3 dates. They're never going to give me sex. There's a lot of really negative, toxically masculine assumptions about that. Women owing you sex. I'm not going to put that to the side. But one of the reasons why people are even sympathetic to caring about that is because taking somebody out on 3 dates and getting no kind of emotional anything from that, that could be like $300. 3 dates could be $300 in the modern age. You know what I mean? In a world in which 3 dates is $50, people are going to care way fucking less if they get stood up. I'm making that proclamation. You know what I mean? It's not going to go away. And it doesn't fix some of the negative assumptions about women that men have, but it addresses why people care so much.
One of my regulars from All Black Everything has brought it up on stream how some girl, he feels scammed him because she said like, well, she couldn't go out on a date, and he sends her like money to get ready to go out, on a date. It's like, okay, like I still want to take you out. I'm gonna give you money. It's like 200 something bucks, right? And then she doesn't show up, and then from there, like starts making a bunch of excuses as to like why she can't show up. And he's like, I'm like literally going to go to court with her. Like I'm literally that pissed about that. Like that's the thing. This happens. That happens too. It's a lot of money that men are expected to pay. That men are socialized to pay, and that women. These same women out there who are saying like, oh, men need to solve their own problems, expect them to pay, right? Or what kind of gentleman is he, right? Like this is the thing that happens. And like, if you don't have like resources, poor distribution of wealth, as this tweet says, then that's an issue. I also like just going back up for a second. When we were talking about the geography and things that are poorly designed, there was an example I couldn't think of. It just popped in my head, right? But it's on a smaller scale. Because you brought up restaurants. It's the difference between a hostel and a hotel, right? So I've stayed in a hostel when I used to travel. I used to have more money subs to the channel. I would travel to different countries, right? And I always stay in hostels rather than hotels because they are designed differently. Hotels are built for privacy. They're built for you to go into your room, right, with whoever you're going in there with, and for you to be alone, right? And then you just go, and from there you will leave your room, you go down to the lobby, and you go out into the city and do your thing. That is like built for privacy. But a hostel is different. It's built to create interactions so that you can meet. So when I would travel alone, but I would say this: I travel alone, but I'm never alone. So I would go to a hostel, and in minutes, I'd have a friend. I went to Hong Kong, was it? I think it was Hong Kong. And I just got to this hostel, right? They gave me my room. I went up to our to the suite because they have group dorms, right? They have group dorms you can choose to go to. So I went to the group dorm, and there was a bunch of guys there, and they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And we just started talking, and then from the point I entered that hostel to that point, it took me like 5, maybe 7 minutes to have a group of people to go out to dinner with. That's simple, right? Design matters. Design affects everything. So I just want to get that point out. I forgot it before. Anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that I like what I think both of us are spitting. Both of us are cooking right now. So I think that what we're doing right now is we're able to kind of frame these issues as not like men and women versus like gender wars. It's like this is the societal consequences of how we set up an organized society, from something as simple as how do we design restaurants and hostels to something as simple, complicated as dating apps. And I think that like framing it like that allows us to kind of like we can step back and we can have a rational discussion, because we're not. I think we can both agree it's not women's fault. In the same way, it's not men's fault. It's none of our faults. We all just got thrown into this fucking society. You know what I mean?
All right, let's continue on.
and the poor distribution of wealth causing people to suffer food and housing insecurity. Boo-hoo, you're lonely and have no friends and are suicidal, wah. Because feeling alienated under capitalism apparently isn't a thing. People are working harder and longer while wages have been stagnant, men have been dropping out of college like flies, and what does that get you? Poor men. Which, since women are doing amazing in college now, and many are now out-earning men, this most of the time leads to single men, which then leads to lonely men, which leads to depressed men, which leads to the high suicide rate. In my opinion, leftism at a policy level does a great job addressing the shitty material conditions that in part lead to the problems that men are facing, but then absolutely drops the ball when it comes to everything and anything related to men's cultural issues. Many such cases. And why would a struggling man even want to move left when the left appears actively hostile to them?
The question of whether or not the hashtag online left does enough to appeal to hashtag men has become the question du jour. And like, men have most of the money, authority, and do most of the murdering and assaulting.
The average young man in America isn't Jeff Bezos. Also, why did this motherfucker just FBI crime statistics at me? Men.
Like, again, like, this is like, bro, like, even just to hear someone say, like, what a cruel way to think about any group of people. Oh, they're the one to do all the killing and that. Bro, like, what the fuck do you think that they just, you're a fucking anarcho-communo-Marxo-nist. Do you not know that's the whole thing? It's supposed to be material conditions. That's your whole gambit. That's your whole thing. And if it, like, it just goes out the window. It's like, oh, I don't know.
I'm curious because I used to watch that channel. I haven't watched in a while. I'm curious if because I'm pretty sure they're like non-binary. I'm curious if they had a larger point there. You know, like that was like closely edited. Not saying that like Sean has been deceptive here, but I'm just saying that like I would like to have heard their larger point that they were trying to make there. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure I'm sure the anarcho-communist had a nuanced and thoughtful position that was completely achievable and something that could be implemented in human society. I agree.
All right.
Also, why did this motherfucker just FBI crime statistics at me? Men do the most murder. Okay?
They like having all of the stuff they don't deserve. They like that. They want it to stay that way because it suits them. Because of the stuff, telling people they're special and deserve all the nice shit that they have, that's going to be an easier sell 10 times out of 10 than like saying, hey, maybe you should have less stuff and other people should have more.
Thing that the average 13-year-old has is like a gaming computer or a laptop or like an Xbox. That's the nicest thing that these white supremacist 13-year-old boys, patriarchal little stormtroopers. What the fuck are you fucking talking about? Like what the types of guys that like Andrew Tate are, are fucking losers. These are guys that have nothing in this society. That's why it's attractive. If you had something in the society, if you had something to lose, why the fuck would you listen to Andrew Tate or any of these people? I don't know. That's just it is so ass fucking backwards.
Leftism is when you don't have a lot of stuff. We're gonna take your stuff. You sound like a 65-year-old Fox News boomer's idea of what the left is. Are you a CIA agent? The right is saying to men, you will own a house. You will have beautiful children with your loving wife. You will have privacy. You will have free speech. You will own things, and you will be happy. And the left is like,
they like having all of the stuff they don't deserve.
But don't get me wrong, Republicans will not do shit. The Republican Party will not do shit. The establishment in general will not do shit to help any of this. But the right is, at least rhetorically, offering men something other than nothing or the eternal HR department. Every time this Discord comes up, there's people like, we need a leftist Andrew Tate. We need masculine role models on the left. But the fact is, it's hard for progressives to organically appeal to men, because a large part of progressivism is oppressive hierarchies, and men are oppressors. Making progressivism look appealing to young men is an uphill battle from the start. And although it's funny to laugh at insane people on Twitter, as always, there have been a lot of left-wing content creators talking about men's issues. If you would have told me this would be a thing 9 years ago, I would not believe you, because anyone talking about men's issues back in the day was called an MRA or a pick-me. But lately I have seen a lot of good pro-men lefty content, and I'll put some links to some below. I don't agree with all the points they say, but I recommend watching. It's much better than...
They like having all of the stuff they don't deserve.
But the issue is a lot of this...
I'm kind of curious as to who she put down here. Just take a quick look. I don't see.
I think if you look above, there are like little red squares next to links. I think those are YouTube videos.
Oh, okay, yeah. Motion objectification, Andrew Tate thought. Okay, well, Voss joins TYT, so that's probably to it. I'll have to. I was hoping to see like a name, but it's fine. It's fine. I'll just move on. So you can go to a video and click those links, figure out who she was talking about.
This lefty pro-men content, it's always framed around how do we get them? As if men are just pawns and tools for your personal politics. How do we make the left more appealing to men? How do we stop lonely men from moving to Andrew Tate? Instead of just, how do we help men? And I think that's a really big issue. Both sides seem to treat men as political fodder. Disposable soldiers in the culture war and real war. Anyway, misandry is real. Oh good, finally! And while it doesn't systemically affect cis men, it most certainly affects trans men. Oh. Y'all talking about misandry doesn't harm men, and trans men are right there reading this shit, by the way. I see, now we only care about misandry because it affects trans men. Everyone stop! It's affecting a group I care about now. I love how the rhetoric just like evolved overnight from male tears to cis male tears. And I just have to ask, why aren't you including trans men in your misandry,
Nobody told me how lonely being a man is. We knew what depth felt like before we transitioned. We knew what it felt like to like have people want to hug us and to have people want to talk to us and to have a community. And then you transition and you're just a guy walking down the street that people cross the street so that they're not near you. And friendships are so much harder to build. What's hard is none of this invalidates how real and raw women and people who are in marginalized groups feel about cis white men. All of that's valid. But I also now understand why the suicide rate is so much higher in men.
Welcome to being a man.
Yeah, that was super interesting. It's really interesting hearing the experiences of people who've transitioned because of this. Yeah, because society has drastic expectations. The moment you pass, right? Well, then you see really what it's like on the other side. For like, males who transition to being a female, you'll feel less safe in society because of how people treat you. And then for men, yeah, like people don't want to touch you, right? Interact with you. You might have been touched too much, like as a woman, and then as a man, you're touched too little. I remember in college, like there was this period of time, like when I first went to college, that like no one touched me, like no one touched me at all, and I didn't realize this until like the slight bumps I would get from people, or like when I finally like went home and like interacted with my family, right? Like there would be like a spark, literally there was a spark when someone would touch me, because it would have been so long since anyone hugged me or just like physically interacted with me. And so like once like someone did, it's like, what is that feeling? It's a feel good feeling that I never previously had because it was like a regular thing. But like, yeah, as a man, people don't physically interact with you in that way. And it gets lonely. And like even your bros, right? Oftentimes, like I'm more of a touchy-feely guy, right? But your bros like don't want to like do that because I don't want to be gay or whatever the fuck, right? Like these things like amount to loneliness. With men, yeah, they need touch like anyone else because we're still human beings. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I know. I would like to kind of emphasize what you said. I agree everything you said right there. I think there's a lot of kind of a natural allyship between cis men and trans men insofar as we both have a shared goal. We want to be good men.
Destroy women.
And it's hard to. We want to destroy women. We want to take their spaces. We want to destroy gender, destroy Western civilization. Honestly, I'm going back the whole rationalist project. We're nominalists now. Okay, no, that's like a Catholic church. That's like a Catholic church dispute. But yeah, I those clips are sad. Obviously sad to watch. It sucks that guy had to deal with that kind of stuff. But also, it's part of it is like I'm sure. I mean, there's a part of it's like I feel like a strange relief when I see videos of trans men to kind of talk about these issues, because it makes me feel not crazy. It makes me feel like not a failure. It's like, so like if these guys are also dealing with this, okay, this is like this is a problem for everybody. You know what I mean? It's like when you're having a problem with a game and you Google it and everyone else is like, why can't I beat this boss? And you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me. I'm an idiot. This is just a really hard boss to beat.
It's more than that though. It's more than that, because like the commoner frame is that like, well, it's something wrong with like how these men are being raised, right? So it starts with the household. We can't teach some of these things, right? Women just kind of understand these things better, and so they don't have these problems. Well, these are, you know, people who are socialized as women, and then they enter into manhood later on than the rest of us, and they run into the exact same things, right? Like the female brain, right? The female genetic brain is not better equipped to handle this than the male genetic brain, or it's not simply due to socialization. There's something larger about society, about our cultural habits. They're creating these things, and these things aren't being acknowledged. And so like this like sheds a light on that. So, okay.
I mean, perhaps have these trans men tried to not be conservative? Have they tried that? I'm
not sure. Being a fascist, right? Like, and being a fucking incel.
Talking about white supremacists.
Yeah, white supremacists clearly they're standing there crying. Like, why don't they try getting in touch with their emotions?
Oh, okay. So even in that video of him crying, he has to, like, you know, he has to kind of bookend it by being like, but even if, you know, I recognize this doesn't invalidate the feeling that people have about cis white men. And I saw a TikTok the other day that made me laugh. It was a video of just like Alex Jones from like really early when he was like younger. So he was like less fat, less old. And he's just walking around to Home Depot, like smiling. And it's just like playing like really, really happy music. And it just says, POV, you're a white male and you're the cause of everybody's problems. And I just thought about that. Like, you're just walking around, living your day. You're like, oh, yep, sorry, but I caused men's problems too. My bad. Pardon me. I just keep walking. I don't know. I think about that sometimes.
I hope that was done sarcastically, but I'm not quite sure.
No, I mean, it's funny that it's like this. Every single problem on Earth, it's like, no, I want to make sure that we recognize that it is the white cis men that are behind this. It's like, oh God, they found me out again. They got me.
Understand why the suicide rate is so much higher in men.
Welcome to being a man. Here's your complimentary isolation and yellow pillow. I love how even when he's experiencing the issues of being a man, he's like, this doesn't invalidate people hating men. Come on, bro. Men struggling don't want to be lectured about the patriarchy. They don't want to be told it's all their fault. They don't want to be told they're part of the problem, because first of all, they're not. The average 20-year-old didn't build society. They go to work, come home, off to sissy hypno fetish porn, and go to bed like everyone else. I've talked about this before, but a lot of men's value comes from the money they make, unfortunately. Men are natural providers, and if they have nobody to provide for, they get into findom or send random girls on the internet money. I'm just kidding, but the fact is, a lot of men simply feel like they don't have a purpose anymore. Whether a job or a career that's fulfilling and pays well, or a woman or family to protect and take care of and provide for, men are lacking purpose. And a man will crawl through broken glass for a purpose. But you know who does make them feel like they have a purpose?
Oh yeah, just like, it was interesting she said crawl through broken glass, because like there's those like men training camps, you know, you've heard these, where these like camps for grown men, and they have them do like crazy like boot camp things, and then like extreme things like hurting yourself, like crawling through things like that, for that purpose. Yes, men. She's absolutely right. Men will crawl through broken glass for a purpose.
So if you just something that I definitely think is part of this. This is something that I this is a theme that I see a lot in some like indigenous philosophy and some writing that talks about like the difference between like indigenous and European colonizer kind of way of living. Is a very heavy emphasis for young men on like a period of your life when you're typically between ages of like 13 and 18. Where you do a kind of a thing. The stereotypical view of this is like the spirit quest, but it's obviously more complicated in the different societies. But it's like a ritual in which the boy dies and the man lives, in which that process of quote unquote crawling on broken glass, you do a thing, you perform a thing in society that everybody can point to and say that was the thing in which Prime stopped being the boy, started being the man, Kobe stopped being the boy, started being the man. We definitely don't have that. I think a big thing that I would assume most people, feminists or not, would agree. We have an overwrought problem of man babies in our society. We have really old men that are very emotionally and intellectually immature. I'm one of them, and only recently I think I've begun to really kind of emotionally mature, and it's a very hard process. As a guy, as that cis man was talking, or as that trans man was talking about. But other societies, like seemingly like that was something that was kind of thought about. That there's going to be this time where we help men transition and have that crawl through broken glass moment, but we don't. We've like gone away from that because we're worried that if we feed into that energy, we'll recreate toxic masculinity. And it seems like we've created like a weird other thing, which is this like inert masculinity that doesn't do anything. It just sort of sits and wallows in its own pleasure pod.
Have a purpose. No, not him.
I say that life as a man is exceptionally difficult. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you.
The absolute audacity to act shocked that Andrew Tate is scooping these guys up after a decade of lol male tears is insane. Andrew Tate isn't the solution to men's problems, but he is talking to them. The fact is, you did not care about them for years. And even now you just want to recruit them, not help them. And that's why you will fail. And hey, maybe I'll be the Andrew Tate of the left. Men, listen up. Wash your penis. So I guess I'll leave you guys with a question. Why do you think male loneliness has been increasing? What are your solutions for this problem? And are you dealing with loneliness? And I will see you guys next time with a new video. Bye!
Shout out to Shoonhead for a solid video. Out to her.
No, I really liked that. I thought it was really good. I thought it was like not too hyper partisan on either side. I thought it was funny. I agreed.
Yeah, shout out to her. I think she crushed it.
I have a question though. Just at the very end, do you think there are any causes that were not?
This got 2 million views, like almost 2.1 million views. So the message got out. But go ahead.
I was just saying, are there any causes, like things that you feel like weren't touched on that you feel like could be touched on?
Touched on, but could be touched on. I don't know. I'd have to put some thought into it. Sorry.
Yeah, because I really liked the video, and as I've watched it again, I'm trying to think about trying to preempt some of the criticism people would have of it. I think generally, I think there, if there could, I think a lot of people probably could say there could be more room in which you kind of just give space to the women's issues, talk about why women are so perhaps, they showed all those tweets, all the negative tweets. Maybe think about like, why are there so many people that have that position? Like the first thing I like the very first thing I said that was like, some people have this really negative reaction to talking about men's issues, and partially that is well deserved. You know what I mean? And the Andrew Tates of the world are because of that. So perhaps there could have been a little bit more on that kind of subject.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I guess maybe how academia like interacts with this, and I guess a bit more solutions for the left, like a bit more of a serious interaction as to like why those tweets were wrong, like those misfires I was saying, that like these people are just like attacking an enemy that literally isn't there, right? Like completely misdiagnosing a problem that was already diagnosed for them, and it's just like they're just like hitting leftist talking points, right? Or not even leftist, like liberal talking points, and how these things kind of infiltrate society, like, and the internet, and then people just do whatever with them. And by doing whatever, I mean like use them completely and utterly wrong, and think they've like reached some sort of nirvana. I don't know, but that might be just beyond the scope of this video.
Yeah, I definitely there's something to that though. I think I've been noticing this more and more, where there's like these ideas get created in the universities, but then there's this process of filtering down to these like larger cultural aesthetic areas of society that in the process there's like a mutation that occurs where these very sensible ideas just get turned into the most fucking insanely ridiculous interpretations, and then it becomes like this great goose chase where one side is pointing out the mutations and the other side is pointing out the initial evolution, evolutionary link. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Let's. So I wanted to do a comparison of two videos. So this is on the other side of men's expectations of women, and we're gonna use our friend Piers Morgan, who we looked at in the last Hanging Chads 3 weeks ago. And so we're gonna watch two videos from him and just like compare the messages. So let me start with this one.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. The Miss England contest has
And
revealed...
this is called Piers Morgan Debates Feminists on Miss England Pageant, Bringing Back Bikinis. I just want you to hold on to that. All right, so...
It could restore its bikini competition after 20 years of self-censorship. The pageant used to feature a swimwear round for budding beauties to showcase their physical...
Hold on, I'm gonna up the volume. Can you guys hear this? Well, he sounds low to me. Let me see if I can up the volume. 1 second, guys. Open volume. I'm sure he's gonna get very loud in a second. Opera, yeah. So let me. I'll go back and.
has revealed it could restore its bikini competition after 20 years of self-censorship. The pageant used to feature a swimwear round for budding beauties to showcase their physical fitness, but it was banned in 2002 amid claims of sexism. Well, earlier this year, Miss Northern Ireland ditched its bikini round over concerns it was distracting from the true meaning of the contest, which suggests to me they didn't understand the true meaning of the contest. But Angie Beasley, the director of Miss England, says she's refusing to bow down to the woke brigade as she mulls the big decision, adding, "It's great to be empowering women to feel confident in their own skin." So is this firebrand feminism or just Stone Age sexism? And what, frankly, is so offensive about bikinis? Well, I'm joined by the former Miss USA, Sarah Rose Summers, and Ivana Knoll, the former Miss Croatia, and the feminist campaigner and current Miss North London. I've given her that title, Julie Bindle. All right, Julie, let me start with you, Miss North London, which I'm sure you would have won if you'd ever entered. What's your problem with this? I never understood why they took it away. I thought the whole point of beauty pageants was the name on the tin suggests it was about physical beauty, and we got to celebrate the beautiful female form. Who cares?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with celebrating beauty. There's nothing wrong with women's own definition of beauty. The problem is pitting women against each other competitively and men deciding who is conventionally attractive in the sense of the very sexist stereotypes.
Well, hang on, and women.
That girls grow up under the cosh of.
And women used to watch them and still do.
Of course, but there's no...
Why are you singling out men?
There's little point putting... Because there's little point using women as a smokescreen to suggest that... Because of course I agree that women...
So Piers Morgan understanding of patriarchy is like the budding conservative 5th graders understanding of it, right? Like, so... like, yeah, like men, like, yeah, she says men are judging these women. Like, oh yeah, but there's sometimes women judges. So that's it. Like, I can't understand like the larger societal context around here. Now, and to be fair, like I disagree with the feminists, right? Like I've argued here on this channel about like, you know, like the beauty pageants and like doing like what they want, if that's what they want to do, right? And this idea that it's necessarily sexist. But still, like, I can understand her argument, like the context of the argument, and like adding the fact that women are a part of judges panels, like, that does not invalidate that at all. But because like Piers Morgan here like has like a very like the thinnest under example what the patriarchy is, he thinks, well, that solves it, doesn't it? Do you want to say anything, Glibby?
No. I sorry. I was half distracted. I'm trying to get my internet to kind of work, but I'm also
working on that. Okay, no problem. Okay.
Have the right to do what they wish with their own bodies. There's no point suggesting that this is about women and women's empowerment and agency, when this comes from men, this comes from the directive that women's worth should be measured with conventional beauty. Like I say, I have no issue with women.
What is okay?
earning money the way they wish.
Let me challenge you on this. What is wrong with celebrating conventional beauty? I used to love watching Miss World and those things.
Absolute. Look, the competitiveness of these beauty competitions is sexism on steroids.
They're competitions to see who's the
pitting
most
women against
beautiful.
each other and saying
it's the whole point of it.
Women lose and women win. And this is exactly how women are socialised, to feel worth less compared to
come off it,
conventionally
Julie.
attractive
You don't
women.
believe
A
this.
beauty standard that is set by men. Without sexism, we wouldn't have Miss
Last
World.
time I checked,
and also,
Millie-
if you think about what happens in these competitions.
Do you now? I don't know if that's actually the case, and maybe I'm wrong. Right? It's been pointed out to me that yes, like as a cis straight man, that beauty pageants are of an advantage to me. Right? Like their presence gives me something that like like I have motivated reasoning here, and that's fair, right? But this idea that without sexism, we wouldn't have a thing called like beauty pageants. Now, I agree that society like pits women against each other and makes them feel worth less when you don't meet a certain standard. But like in a society where like men and women were completely equal, would people not compete on various like on various axes, right? So like competing who can lift the heaviest thing, right? Who can run the fastest? And then who do people find attractive? Because in a society where we're all equal, that doesn't mean that like everyone is equally attractive, you know? And like there will still be like there will be people. I guess what I want to say is that like even if you widen what was considered beautiful, right? Like for instance, weight. Like if we as society valued people who are overweight, and you like saw like the beauty within or whatever the fuck, right? Like and the beauty without, right? And we put them on that stage. Still, like people with like symmetrical faces are going to be more attractive than people without symmetrical faces, right? Like who have like certain features, people are just going to be more attracted to those features than otherwise, right? Like people who are like pockmarked have never been like held as like the beauty standard in society. It's just simply never been the case. So like it seems like why wouldn't they also compete on like, hey, who's hottest? Right? Like, I don't know. Am I being crazy? Am I being an asshole here? I don't know. I might be an asshole. What do you think?
I like half. I would say like I'm like more on her side. I think you're being a little overly semantic. I think you're correct. I think in a totally gender equal world, we would have like the Olympics more or less, and the Olympics would part of that would be like an aesthetic. You know, there are Olympic sports like gymnastics that are very heavily aesthetic. It's not just the sportsmanship that's being judged. It's like how you look and how you present yourself and stuff. So I definitely agree there. But I think the steelman of her argument would be that it's like, why this competition? Why do we have this type of competition where women are in bikinis strolling up and down the stage? That is because of sexism. The whole practice of comparing, different humans. I don't know if that is something that would go away, but the type of comparison, the type of contest would.
So okay, I guess I want to amend my argument here, because I obviously believe that like at the start of this, definitely like pure sexism, like especially if you look at the way they talked about the contestants, like when the beauty started like having like big beauty contests, like televised beauty contests, is like super fucking weird, right? Like and like what the point of these women are supposed to embody, very weird. But like I'm like pushing forward with like what these contests can be and like what they could be in the future, like what they are today and what they could be in the future. And it would seem to me that within the future, like we as a we've always appreciated aesthetics. Like in any society, we've appreciated aesthetics, and it's not simply men like imposing these aesthetics on women and saying that you need to appreciate these things as well. Like women are women. I don't know. It just seems like you understand where I'm going with this.
I totally. I mean, I 100% agree with you. Like there's a like you're like the symmetry. Our point is a very strong point here. There are, having a symmetrical face is always going to be something that's viewed as more beautiful and more attractive than a not. Like just that term, attractive, is just forever. That's just a universal around all things. However, the question is like, I think we'd both agree. If you look at the lineup at a female beauty contest, the limits of aesthetics is it's one type of body. There's one type of body, a type depicted, and then it's like just variations on that body type.
I acknowledge that. I'm saying that like, but she said before the reason why I pointed that out is that she said like we have this context because of sexism, and I think the implication from that, and which is true, right? Because of sexism, we've established in the past, but that these contexts can't exist outside of that. That like in a gender equal society, that of course it wouldn't do that, but why wouldn't we? Like, why would this be the one thing that people just like don't care about and like don't compete with each other on, right? Like, there's going to be women, or girls and women in that society who get more male attention. Male attention will not be evenly divided, like among all women in that society, right? Like, and we in that gender neutral society, maybe we have ways to mitigate these things to make other people feel like not bad about themselves, showing that like, yeah, you're a woman and maybe you don't get that level of attention, but like you have so many other things to that get you attention, that like your brains get you attention. Not that pretty people don't have brains, but like you like your work ethic, all these things are like equally as valued. That could be the case, but still beauty will be valued. Right? Attractiveness will be valued. Like, that's just a thing. And it seems to me that within that context, that some people are going to compete, right? There'll be competitiveness on its own, like just like within like interpersonal dynamics, but also on the larger scale of society. Like, yeah, like let's see who is the hottest. Let's have a person judge. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm like trying not to be a sexist right now. I don't know, but maybe I am. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like what I just said?
It doesn't make sense because I decided to not be conservative, so I don't even know what I'm talking. I more, I more or less agree. I think, the Steelman version of the argument that I agree with is just that in a more equal society, that what we would appraise as being aesthetically pleasing would be very different.
Agreed. And again, I've acknowledged that. But all right, we'll move forward.
We wouldn't have Miss
Last
World.
time I checked,
and also, if you think about what happens in these competitions,
Julie,
there are so many women.
Last time I checked, millions of women watch these competitions on TV too. They love them.
It's irrelevant.
Why is that irrelevant?
What I'm talking about is because it's about the message that it sends to girls, to women in society, that this is something that happens.
You have to wear loads of clothes, otherwise, and
not to men.
So you can only be in a beauty pageant if you wear head-to-toe clothing that covers all your flesh. This sounds like something out of North Korea or Saudi Arabia.
Themselves. No. Beauty pageants in and of themselves are a symbol of sexism. I'm not suggesting banning them. I'm not suggesting locking up those that organise them or profit from them, such as Donald Trump, of course, that well-known pro-feminist man who owned Miss Universe. The stories about the sexual harassment, sexual assault, and terrible treatment of women in these pageants have been circulating for decades.
Okay, look,
and we mustn't forget all of the reports from women about what happens to them during these pageants.
Let me go to someone who won Miss USA and Miss Universe, Sarah Rose Summers. Sarah, you've been laughing away listening to this because apparently you're a tormented victim. And this is demeaning and sexist and male pigs like. Well, you basically implied that it's only men like me who are,
God, Piers Morgan is definitely good at putting words in other people's mouths. Like he's an expert at that.
Being sexist pigs for watching it. Well, okay. You implied it was a male issue that because men are objectifying women like Sarah. So, Sarah, did you feel? Well,
They
Sarah,
do.
did you feel objectified and a victim?
I did not. I think it's just so important in this feminist female empowerment movement that we support each other's dreams and goals and aspirations. And no one ever forced me to compete in Miss Nebraska USA, Miss Universe. That was something I chose to do. And I started competing in pageants without a swimsuit competition.
To be clear, you can choose to do something that empowers like the patriarchy, right? Like, that's the thing that you can choose to do. And just because you had that choice, because it was your choice, doesn't mean that it doesn't like empower the patriarchy. Like, to be very clear on that. So like they think like they're acting like once I choose it, it becomes a feminist action in of itself. Oh no, right? Like you can choose to be an Uncle Tom in our society. If you're a black person, you can choose to be Uncle Tom, right? You can choose to be a Candace Owens, right? Like she had a lot of agency there, and she chose to go down that right and empower a white racist society. And sure, great, but that's like not being anti-racist, right? Just because her as a black woman was empowered to make that choice doesn't mean that it's not a racist choice. You know?
Back when I was just 10 years old, I was super shy. It brought me public speaking skills, interview skills, taught me confidence, how to hold myself on a stage and in a swimsuit. And long term, I believe the swimsuit competition is a positive for Miss contestants specifically, because it really did teach me a healthy lifestyle. It taught me to long term sustain. You know, I never neglected my sweet tooth. I love my sweets, but I found ways I enjoyed moving my body. And that's not something that came natural to me either. I think that's so important. When people hear that I'm pro swimsuit competition, they instantly think, oh, well, you know, look at you. You don't have to work for it by any means. Well, that is completely false. Genetics have definitely been against me. I've watched my mom yo-yo diet and diet her whole life. And so I knew firsthand that I wanted to be proactive and stay fit. So I enjoy workout classes and things of that nature. So for myself and most everyone, it's a very close-knit group of women. You know, we're all very like-minded. We have big, lofty goals and are very philanthropic focused. So some of my best friends I've met through pageantry.
I find this just kind of interesting. Somebody said something in chat that I think is truthful. I agree with her. People need to understand that feminism is at its base freedom of choice, and this is something that there's a very famous interview that I believe is Betty Fernand interviewing, who is the woman who wrote a very influential book called The Feminine Mystique. She's interviewing a woman named the woman who wrote the book The Second Sex, which these two books, The Feminine Mystique and The Second Sex, are like the Bibles of feminism. These were released in the 50s and the 60s, started the modern contemporary first wave feminist movement. And in this interview, Fernand basically asked this question.
You mean second wave, not first wave?
Sure, one of the waves. It was a preemptivizing one of the waves. And she asks she asks about this hypothetical. What if in a society in which women are given freedom of a choice, they choose to become housewives? And I believe it's Bouvard, the French thinker. She says that there might need to be a restriction. You know, like women need to be helped to choose the right thing, to make the right decisions. And I find that very interesting. That was just one random sentence in like a very long interview. But I find it interesting that exact problem keeps popping up in feminism. Is feminism about women being able to make whatever choice, or is feminism about women making the correct choice, so to speak?
Yeah, but and that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, so I agree. Feminism is about choice, but there is not the correct choice. So I don't believe that. So I think we have to give space for women to make any choice, right? But like, my previous point is that like you can make a choice, right? And that in itself is like, yes, you've been empowered to do so, but that choice can be in service of the patriarchy. So, but like, we got to give people, but I would say we got to give people space to do that. So, like, if this woman wants to like be in these pageants, we certainly give her space to do so. But like, I wouldn't do the restrictions like you were talking about that one person said that we would have to restrict them so they learn to have the right choice. You know, like, I hate that. I hate that altogether. Yeah. So feminism can be choice, but yeah, a choice cannot. I wouldn't say a bad choice, but like it would be a choice that upholds the status quo and it isn't of itself.
Well, I have a question. Is Candace Owens making a bad choice? Promoting the political position she's promoting.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess when I said that, I said that like to not judge these particular
like a more
women or any, yeah, right. So like but women can make bad choices, and of course men.
Yeah.
But, like women can make bad choices, and then in terms of minorities and black individuals in particular, yes, they can make bad choices that uphold racism and white supremacy. Yeah, so it's a bad choice in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I would say that all of us would unanimously agree that the competitions that are in Miss USA, Miss Universe have only strengthened our confidence.
Okay. I like that, and I think that's exactly what my feedback has been. I've actually judged one of these things, Miss UK, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Interesting.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a wonderful.
Now, my judges panel.
Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful.
My judges panel was fully made of women as well.
Right. I mean, I just thought it was.
See, she says it like, that does it, because she has a very poor understanding of like patriarchy. So she's like, full women panel. So there's nothing to criticize. Like,
Bro, it's literally, it's like, I'm sure you're familiar. Socialism is when the government does stuff.
Yeah.
Patriarchy is when men do stuff. Feminism is when women do stuff.
Yeah. Exactly that. And that's, I mean, it's good to, like I said, to tell a fifth grader, right? That's like the entry point there. Fair enough. But by this point, you need to I shouldn't say by this point. Like, we all come into our like political awakenings at different points in time, right? So I'm not trying to criticize this woman, right? To not having her feminist awakening. But like, she thinks this is about like what she's doing. So I'm saying what she's doing could be empowering, but like to necessarily say that it's feminist, I think that she is not yet equipped to make that argument, because clearly she doesn't understand like the basics, So
a celebration of feminist empowerment, frankly. Ivana, you are not exactly shy. We see a lot of you on your Instagram, and you're wearing, I think, your swimsuit as we speak. What do you make of this? I mean, do you think there's any merit to the argument that perhaps it is a bit demeaning for women to, in a beauty pageant, have to wear swimsuits?
Dear Pierce, I cannot even think. I cannot believe in 2023 we're discussing about this. I am a bikini owner of SUC. And first of all, bikini is part of life. Even every grandpa has a bikini. Guys wearing bikini. Why guys are not sexualized to wearing men's shorts? It's totally different. Men can be hormonal crazy about women wearing completely leggings and covered. It doesn't need to be bikini for sexualism, He can say, oh, this girl is hot, even full dress. It's how we behave and how we allow guys to behave with us. If I say, hey, I don't care about your hormones, I'm wearing bikini and I want to be respected, I'm respected. And girl who is coming to a competition for Miss World, she need to be confident and she don't care about guy who is thinking with hormones. I don't think this girl should even be in the competition, because if she's shy and she's afraid to be sexualized, then...
I'm sorry, look at Pierce shaking his head like I find this all very amusing. But let's continue on.
This poor girl should be in a living room and watch on TV screen.
I completely agree. Let me bring Julie back. Julie, isn't this the point? You don't have to enter these things. They are a competition. I used to judge Britain's Got Talent and America's Got Talent. We'd have all sorts of people on with all sorts of talents. No one was forcing them to be there.
I do gotta say, this is something. This is a point that I don't know. This is something that springs in my mind. This woman's from Croatia, so like think about like go back 100 years, so like 1923 in Eastern Europe, and Eastern Europe is like one of the most ass backwards places of all of Europe when it comes to social roles. Women are like completely like medieval. Well, this is this would be my point here. One of the few good things that even anti-communists will say about the Soviet Union is that the Soviet Union helped readdress the social roles of women in many of the countries of the Soviets and that had influence in, including Eastern Europe, including Russia. To see, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, where in these Soviet influenced states, women and women's rights it is like a central tenet of the ideology of the government. To in 2023, Croatia, the sex tourism in Eastern Europe exploded after the fall of the USSR. That's one of the great, in my opinion, that is one of the great tragedies of the fall of the Soviet Union, is that in all of these countries, that progress, that feminist progress, was not reverted in ways unimaginable. And there's an extreme amount of pornography that is produced in countries like Croatia because of the liberalization laws that came with the Soviet Union, the fall of the Soviet Union. Michael Parenti talks about this in Black Shirts and Reds, but the rates of the production of child pornography skyrocketed after the fall of the Soviet Union. The rates of prostitution, all these kinds of things. And so again, I'm part of me. I want to be a good feminist, and I don't want to tell this woman that she doesn't have the right to live the life she wants to live. I agree. I have that sympathies, but the other part of me, the historian of me, kind of views this as like, look at the status of the women of Eastern Europe, where it went from like this incredible leap forward to what people. I mean, obviously, there's a debate now. Is this a sidestep, or is this a continue? Is this a leap forward in a place that I no longer recognize? So that's what came to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it really empowering when, like, the women don't have much of a choice when it's like survival sex work? That like this is her best option. Now, I think I think it'd be empowering if like you have a whole list of options that you can choose from, and this is the one you just happen to choose, right? You just want to do that. Okay, that's great. But like, it's different. It's different to say that, like, I'm not an anti-sex work, obviously, right? I made that very clear before. But I understand there's different categories. These things exist upon a spectrum because everything exists on a spectrum. Like, what are the options available to these women? Was it just like a natural explosion of prostitution, or is it because things were so desperate there that this was the thing that people were using to feed their families, and they have like very other viable pathways?
This is something that I really don't like about a lot of the discussion of sex work in the West. Is this is not talked about a lot, but it's this idea that it's like, so the people that advocate for sex work are this sort of there's this term that's used to describe white workers in America called labor aristocracy. That they're part of the working class, but they're kind of like the upper class of the working class. White workers are above black workers. In a way, Western e-girls are the labor aristocracy of sex workers. They take naughty photos of themselves and film themselves having sex with their boyfriends in their $5,000 a month apartments in New York, and then they advocate for the legalization of sex work on a global scale. And it's women like this who are coming from some city in the off the Dnieper in Eastern Europe who are the ones that are engaging in the actual system, who get transported to the West, who get flown from places like Bulgaria, like places like Croatia, get flown to the West to engage in sex work. In the full service sex work that many times these e-girls do not engage with, and specifically don't want to engage with. And so it's something that I think is I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no gun to these young ladies' heads. They're on it because they want to show off their beauty. And last time I checked, we are allowed to celebrate.
And see, okay, just be clear. What he's saying right now is what happens when you just like boil down feminism to choice, right? Yes, it's about choosing, but it's like more than that. Then it's like anything can be feminist, right? Like having like being under like it's then the then this leads to the idea that the burqa is feminist, right? That like a person can choose to do that. In fact, I have someone in my community who chooses to do that. But does that make the burqa itself feminist? Like
have you ever seen the movie? Oh, sorry.
And to be clear, like this person, they weren't Muslim previously, and then they went to Islam afterwards, right? Like, so they were, maybe they were Christian before, I'm not sure. But they weren't Muslim, and then in their adulthood, they chose to go to Islam, and they chose the burqa. Now, does that make the burqa feminist because that woman was empowered to have a choice? Ugh.
Have you ever seen the movie Starship Troopers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know at the very beginning, the very first beginning of that movie is a in-universe news. No, before that, so in-universe this is my favorite scene in the whole movie. It's a very similar scene. It's an in-universe act, and it's talking about how some Earth general failed an assault, and he's getting demoted, and he's a white man, and you want to know who they replace him with? A young black woman. The generals that take over from him are all women. They're black women, like a mixed diversity that come and take over. And so it's like, epic girl boss feminist win. The women are now in control of the world spanning fascist empire that's sending thousands to die on another planet. Yeah. Black girl magic is going to be the one that sends you to your death on a endless crusade into the shadowy reaches of the night. Black girl magic is the one that's in charge now. I love that idea that it's like, it doesn't even matter what you're doing. It's the aesthetic. It's the aesthetics. The old white guy, take a sit down. I'm going to send 5,000 men into the breach. Let me try.
We got the female drone operator.
Let's go.
Here we go.
The beautiful female form, as indeed we are to celebrate the beautiful male form. I mean, you're looking at it.
I had your producer told me that I would be debating with two women about this, I would have chosen not to come on the programme because I will not argue with women about the choices they make. My argument is against the men that set these conventional beauty standards, that impose these standards on girls and women growing up, most of whom feel that they are being judged and that they are being demeaned.
They've literally just said the complete opposite.
More or less.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's insane. That's so demeaning. I'm not even going to talk to you about this because I'm not even willing to levy criticism at you. That's what she just said about those two women. That she's not willing to levy like that seems to be like a level of disrespect, in my opinion.
I'm not sure if it's a level of disrespect. I think it's a level of respect. I think it's the opposite, actually. That like, she's not going to tell these women that like their choices are bad or whatever. Like she's not looking at it as systemic or an individualistic manner. She's like, this is a more systemic problem.
But she said with men she is. That's why she's willing to talk to men, though, she says. She's seeing that men are the ones that do uphold this, but women aren't.
Yeah, but I think she means men in like in the systemic sense rather than
like capital M men.
Yeah, capital M men, yeah. Okay. So like I'm not good. So it's like she's not going to argue with these women and like tell them like all your choices are wrong. Like the things you're doing are bad and they're hurting women around the world. She understands these women live within a system and that system has its sticks and carrots, and they're choosing certain carrots that have certain strings attached to them. You know,
I would definitely say I agree. Infantilizing and patronizing. I definitely would say that's like the feeling that I would get, right? Or like that comes off that it's just like I'm not even going to engage with you in this kind of way. That's what that. But also I get your reading too.
Yeah.
Than their own
Julie,
beauty
I think
standards.
honestly, I say this with great
the competitiveness between women is the worst thing possible when actually we need to stick together. So I wouldn't have chosen to come on the programme had I known I was debating with these two women, because my argument isn't with them, it's with the men that uphold these standards.
Right, but what you're conveniently ignoring is we've had two women who've taken part in these pageants who both say that there's no problem. The women all enjoy being on it. They'd like a bit of friendly competition. They're all supportive of each other. They don't feel remotely bothered about men objectifying them because as many women watch it as men. I really don't see what the problem is.
And there are thousands and thousands of testimonies from women all over the world since the 1960s that have been in beauty pageants that talk about hideous misogynistic treatment by men, where they talk about rape and sexual assault, sexual harassment, and being thrown away and discarded once they get to the age of 27, which is the age limit, and being told that they're over the hill. So there are stories that we haven't heard tonight, and I would tell your viewers, maybe go and do a little bit of Google research and have a look at the
Okay,
stories.
well, so let me ask
that
you
we're
this
not
then.
hearing
How do you
tonight.
feel then about public beaches, high streets where women march around in bikinis, especially?
My issue isn't with nakedness or nudity. My issue is with the value placed upon women competing with each other for who has the perfect in the eyes of sexist men that judge women by their
come
looks,
off it.
body,
Honestly, I've
and
got to
physique.
say, Julie,
My
I think
issue
that is
is not
such a...
with nakedness.
Julie,
and
I think
nudity.
it's such a lame thing to say that it's just sexist men that watch these things. They don't. I know loads of women
Well, it's
who
true.
love watching
It's-
beauty pageants and admiring the beauty, as they do, by the way, when they buy women's magazines and see beautiful women on the cover,
Like
often
I
very
say,
famous.
I don't want to hold women up.
No, you don't want to blame
want
any
hold
women for
up
anything. It's all
as a
ugly men like me.
smokescreen
It's my fault.
for sexism.
Listen, we've got to end it there, but
well,
I
quite
make no
frankly,
apology.
with-
Julie, I make no apology for admiring the beautiful female form, including yourself and my two other
And
guests.
I wouldn't ask you to, Piers.
I know. I'm just offering my appreciation of Miss North London. Is that okay?
Good Lord,
Julie,
oh,
I think it's important to note, like I had said earlier, that my panel of judges was solely women that were successful in their industry. So I wasn't strutting my stuff up there, answering on-stage questions to men, as you keep mentioning. Thankfully, I do
but
believe
I would say, though,
the
look, we've got to
has
leave it
really
there, Sarah,
progressed
but
a
I would
lot.
say, honestly, Sarah Rose, I would say, just because men like watching beauty pageants doesn't make us all a bunch of sexist pigs. You can appreciate a beautiful woman
course not.
in the most non-sexist manner
never used the term
possible.
pig.
You could just say you
I never
like
used the
beauty.
term pig.
I admire beauty. I like it in all guises. I like a beautiful Arsenal football player as much as I admire a beautiful woman
Good
at a
for
beauty pageant.
you.
Thank you, Julie. We've reached a point of
Good for
agreement, I
you.
think, or at least
Thank
acknowledgement.
you.
I'm allowed to like beautiful things. Lovely to speak to all three of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. All right. So, Piers Morgan, his his message there, all right, to be clear, his message there is that we should be able to appreciate a woman in the female form. It's not sexist. There's nothing wrong with women do that. If the women choose to do that, there is no issues with that. Okay. So now let's move on to our next video.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. It really is going to get a bit uncensored here. OnlyFans has become a digital phenomenon. There's 100.
Is getting naked a feminist act? In question mark here. Piers Morgan versus Elle Brooke, and who's an OnlyFans creator. OnlyFans has paid more than $5 billion to creators. So let's see what Piers Morgan thinks about this.
90 million users and 3 million so-called creators who mostly use the space to upload X-rated photographs and videos of themselves for their subscribers. And it's big business, very big business, raking in $5 billion a year.
Oh, and pause, guys. If you want one of your comments read, you want to like chime in or anything like that, like super chats, hype chats, that'll make sure that your comment gets read here. And we all can appreciate your big brainess, and it supports the channel. Consider subbing to the channel, gifting bits or gifting subs. If we don't have your support, we can't do these things. So please consider helping out this channel so we can keep going. But we do need your help to do that. All right, continuing on.
Well, Ellie Brooke, who makes 6 to 7 figures per month on the site, describes it as empowering. But after years of fighting back against the objective use of women in newspapers, magazines, and as cheerleaders in sport, isn't it just, well, a bit of a backward step? Well, joining me now is OnlyFans creator Elle Brooke. I did ask you and then got it wrong, didn't I?
Yeah.
And the host of the Blair White Project, Blair White, over in the States. So welcome to both of you. All right, Elle, now tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
What were you before you did this?
I was a law student, and now I'm a TikTok.
At university?
Yeah, Uni of Southampton. So.
Did you graduate or?
No. I dropped out to do OnlyFans because I was making a lot of money. So I was like, why am I doing
You're
reading?
studying to be a lawyer?
Yes.
And then you start doing OnlyFans while you're at university?
Yes.
What made you get into it?
because I saw how much money other people were earning. And I was thinking, hey, I can do this too. And then it turns out I'm pretty good at getting my clothes off. And I was like, this is a career for me.
Now, see, okay, look, I've nothing against you. I'm not taking a moral view here, right? You can do what the hell you like if it's legal.
He's not taking a moral
I'm just
view.
disappointed that someone like you, who's obviously got a
just
great
disappointed.
brain,
Yeah.
training to be a law student at university, decides to pack it all in to just take your clothes off for perfect strangers on OnlyFans. Why?
Because I wouldn't have made loads of money as a solicitor anyway. Like, I would have earned money, yes, but I earned that in 2 weeks now. And I earned that throughout uni.
How much do you make? I mean, how much money do you make?
I earn a lot. How much do you make? Maybe like double that?
Well, we won't get into what I earn, but what do you earn?
I earn a lot of money.
Well, give me a number.
Well, I don't want to give a specific number, but
Why not?
I'm 0.01 on OnlyFans. So
Listen, Piers Morgan just says, "Oh, we're not going to tell you how much I earn," and then he like presses her about how much. It's just a weird thing. Like what? Like she doesn't want to say. You don't want to say. We move past it. But and he says before 6 or 7 figures. 7 figures would be $1 million a month, and that's a possibility. She's at the top of the OnlyFans creators market, and a lot of fucking or six figures would be around like she'd be making $800,000 a month.
I agree he's being hypocritical here between the two different segments, but principle, I do think a society that encourages women to a society in which women, the choice of do I learn, as she says, I found that I could take my clothes off and make more money than going to law school. That's not good. I think that's probably not the society's incentives don't seem to be very well placed there.
Wait a minute. What society where that would change, right? Would that be a society where I guess like men don't like boobies and don't want to ever see boobies? Is that the society?
It'd be like the extremity by which that we like sort of so I think what you're speaking to is that there's an underlying social phenomenon here that's always going to be there, which is that they're going to be very attractive people, are going to have encouragement to sort of like use to bolster their attractiveness to get social status, power, money. And that I would just say that we too much so lean into that in our current society. We value far too much people that do things like pornographers or supermodels that do nothing than be aesthetic. And do not enough value the sort of intellectual kind of thing that she was talking about before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like on base principles, I agree with that. However, in what world does a lawyer? Well, I guess in this world, certain lawyers might make like I guess $1 million plus a month. That there are certain lawyers who are on that level, but very few of them, right? Like, and she wasn't going to be one of them. She wasn't going to be one of those. Not to say that she's like dumb or anything like that. It's just that like she probably wasn't going to be one of those lawyers. She found the thing that allowed her to get that to have that kind of money. But it probably wasn't gonna like both paths wouldn't have been equal, right? Even if we were in that other world, right? Like those paths wouldn't have been equal for her, right? Those paths aren't equal for all people.
Make it much more equal, right?
There's no way to make it much more equal, right? So like, another thing is to say that there is no way because like we should value teachers in our society. I agree with that 100%, right? And I think it's like. And this was my opinion like long ago, right? That like it's really shitty that like sports stars make so much more money than teachers. Like we should be paying teachers as much as fucking sports stars. But like in what world does that make sense? And like how could that possibly make sense? When
I have a question.
Oh no. Let me finish. When sports stars bring in like in our capitalist society, bring in a ton of money, right? Like, should that money not go to the athletes? Should they not make millions of dollars off of the money that's coming in, that they are bringing in with their athleticism, which is valued? I think teachers, in the end, are far more valuable to society. But, like, in terms of, like, how we remunerate them, I think we could vastly upgrade that. I think we could triple the salaries of teachers. I think that would make a lot of sense. But, like, could we pay teachers anywhere near the level of sports stars, or is there going to be a society that devalues sports, that thinks sports like suck, so there's far less people going to stadiums, meaning those sports stars make far less money? Are we going to get to that world? None of these worlds don't exist. These roles don't exist. So we can acknowledge that there are paths that are more valuable, that add more to society. That's true, right? Porn star doesn't add that much to society, but the reason that they get that money is because it's a thing that is desired, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't take away from like we should value more other people. Go ahead.
So you think it's just an unchanging fact of society that somebody like a woman in her position is just kind of probably always going to choose to do sex work over being a lawyer?
What? No. When did I say that? Like you?
I'm trying to understand your point.
Okay,
like,
fair
that's
enough.
That's the reading I got.
Yeah. That's not that they're always going to make that choice. There are a lot of attractive women who don't make that choice. Who decide I'm going to take the path that earns me less money, right? But like I get to do something that interests me, like being an engineer or whatever. Or that like I value different things like helping people within my community, and I want to like run an orphanage or some shit. I don't know, whatever, right? There'll always be people who are attractive and have options who won't take that option, obviously, right? And she is a sexual person, so it's another thing about like your personality. Are you a sexual person? Just because you're attractive doesn't mean you want to do these things. So yeah, all those things that I just said. Response, or should I continue?
I mean, I just like I think we perhaps we agree here. I don't know, maybe we don't. We are the incentives of a society where people are. It's so much more lucrative to be an OnlyFans person that you would, as she says, I learned I could either read books or I could take my clothes off. Even if it's really difficult and we're never going to totally get there, I would definitely say that we should probably try to aim towards a society that taking off one's clothes is not so much more valuable than being part of the knowledge class.
If that means paying the knowledge class more and then not attacking a sex worker's ability to monetize themselves, then yes, we agree.
Okay. I mean, I don't really know a lot about monetization, so I don't really know. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think OnlyFans should be banned. I guess I do not think that. I think it should be allowed to stay around.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, then we agree. Let's continue.
So I'm as top as it gets.
What does that mean?
It means you are the best of the best. 0.01%.
Best of the best of what?
OnlyFans creators in monetary terms.
Why are you so good?
Because I'm really good looking.
Right.
And original.
We're certainly not shy, are you?
No, I know I'm good at what I do.
I'm not going to harangue you for being cocky, because that would be ridiculous coming from me. But, all right, well, let me go to Blair here. I mean, Blair, look, on the face of it, isn't this really what feminist empowerment's all about? A woman in control of her body, doing what she wants with it, making a huge amount of money? Isn't it entirely down to Elle, what she decides to do?
It absolutely is up to Elle to do whatever she wants to do in her professional career. And I don't have any issue with adults doing what they want, entering sex work. However, unfortunately, I think the way in which OnlyFans is often discussed in public makes it out to be this quick get-rich scheme. It reeks of a pyramid scheme. And oftentimes young girls find themselves following this fool's gold rush and not really understanding.
It's definitely not a pyramid scheme, to be clear. Like, I agree with at least most of the point that she's trying to make, but like it's categorically not a pyramid scheme. Just putting it out there.
I think the main point here, I definitely heavily agree with this, is the way that it's depicted in the marketing is that you upload a couple naughty pictures of yourself every great once in a while and you make a little extra cash. And the way that it is for a vast majority of the women that even routinely like post stuff every week is they make barely any money. And it is a tiny, tiny, tiny top 1% that make a vast majority of the money. That is how OnlyFans works.
That's
vast majority, I think.
Twitch streaming works.
Yeah, but here's the big issue, is that Twitch streaming doesn't require you to take extremely compromising photos that in the future of your life, one of them, photo that you upload.
Blair's going to make this point. Blair's going to make this point for us. But we'll just continue.
understanding the consequences of it. So here's some information that I feel like young girls should arm themselves with. The average registered OnlyFans creator makes only $180 a month. That's the average. So we're not discussing Elle in that, obviously, but that is the average. Making about $2,500 a month puts you in the top 1%, which adds up to $15 an hour, which is the same or less than McDonald's pays. So oftentimes these young girls find themselves, entering sex work thinking that it's going to be financially, beneficial for them, and they end up making less than a fast food worker, but they still take on the entire stigma of being involved in sex work and oftentimes can't find employment afterwards. So my only issue is people doing these things without having, themselves armed with the information. And I think everyone should know what
Yeah, I mean, look, you make some good points. I mean, what do your family think of this? I mean, they must be incredibly disappointed, surely, that you backed in a potentially really successful career as a lawyer to do this.
Yes, my dad is dead and my mum is on my payroll. My family are
Your
fine.
mum's on your payroll?
My mum is on my payroll.
In what, doing what?
Admin.
What does that mean?
It's just behind the scenes work. She doesn't do anything rude or anything.
So she loves you doing this?
Well, she doesn't praise it at the pub like, woohoo, my daughter does OnlyFans, but she's supportive. She knows that I'm over 18, I can do what the hell I want. And she knows that, her views can't, impact my life. What is she gonna do? You're grounded because you do OnlyFans. Like, what the hell? It's 2023. People can do what the hell they want.
No, don't get me wrong. I totally subscribe to that, and the show.
Oh, you subscribe?
I don't subscribe to you, but.
What's about these current year arguments? I don't know.
One thing I find kind of funny is, as much it doesn't really matter what Piers or what Blair say. They're not actually taking a position that can actually, as a social force, respond to this.
Yeah,
the world we currently live in, a logical conclusion of this society is OnlyFans. A logical conclusion of this society is this kind of thing. That just is. If we can sit here and as long as the first thing they concede, where they say, "Well, I'm not here to tell you shouldn't be doing it," okay, then the conversation's over. We're just jerking each other off at that point. If we can't say no, you shouldn't do that, we should socially discourage people from doing this, then we're not really having a conversation. And I think that the fact that neither of them are willing to actually say that, and everybody agrees that fundamentally it's a good thing that she's, ultimately she's making an informed decision, and that's the good thing. They're not willing to say, well, no, your informed decision has a large social ramification. The existence of the structure that allows you to make that decision is not good. They're not willing to say that, and from that, they're not willing to actually address the problem.
So I thought you were going in a different direction. Because one, I don't think it's a problem in the first place. There's nothing to address there. I thought you were going to say that they won't undermine the patriarchy to begin with, because if you were going to see this as a problem, right? Like from their perspective, their version of objectification, then that would mean that their entire system is implicated. Blair's being a conservative and Piers, right? Their entire system is implicated, and they don't want to do that because they want to preserve that system. And so they can't have that conversation about, okay, well, how do we dismantle this? So that
I agree with you. I'm going deeper. You're totally right. You're describing what I'm describing. I just go deeper. It's a deeper assumption about not liberalism as in conservatives versus liberals, but liberalism as in the way we structure our society, liberal capitalism. A core fundamental assumption is that as long as you're an adult and you're making a decision about your own life and you're consenting and you want to do that you're making a rational choice, that's more or less, that's where the moral implication can begin and end for a lot of people from a capitalist, liberal capitalist perspective. And both Blair and both Piers Morgan come from that worldview. That's the default. The default is, as long as you're consenting, as long as it's quote unquote consenting adults, you can't really make a moral claim. You can make a preference. You can say, I have a preference for you to not do that. I want you to not do that in my house. I want to not show my kid that. But we can't really say from a social perspective, because that's the ultimate social good, is of informed consent amongst adults.
Yeah, so I get that. I agree with you that we should be able to say that, yeah, your choices have a moral implication, which is what I was saying for Candace Owens. I would say in this particular example, this isn't some sort of, her choices aren't socially corrosive, but that doesn't mean they're like a complete benefit. I don't want to say that either, right? Like that would be foolish of me to imply that they're a complete benefit or anything. But like, not a socially corrosive activity. But yes, you're absolutely right. Like at some point, you need to be able to say these things implicate society. Like the choice to be to take part in the fossil fuel industry, right? At some point, it has a moral implication. That we have to be able to say that, like, okay, this is a bad choice for society, then we should be able to restrict those things. So, like, principally, I agree with you there.
Yeah, another example I'd make that I thought about this would be like, imagine if we were talking about white flight, we were not willing to say that it's a bad thing to not want to live in a racially segregated community. Like if the first position was like, well, at the end of the day, if you really just want to live amongst all white people, that's really not a bad thing. But then we went on to talk about, well, hold on a second. The whole reason we're talking about this is because we're talking about the negative consequences of large-scale individual decisions. Large-scale white families all deciding to move and racially segregate, recreate racial segregation that has negative downstream effects that we're dealing with, and that requires calling into question the individual decisions of individual families.
Yep. Agreed.
I haven't bestowed you that honour yet. No, but I think this show's called Uncensored. You can do whatever you like. I don't care. But I'm just curious about you being someone who embarked on a law career, was obviously very bright, went to university, packed it in just for money to be effectively an online stripper. I mean, that's what you do, right?
Yeah. Way worse than an online stripper. But
what do you mean way worse?
Way worse. Online strippers just, naked. I do things that are way more grotesque than
just
that.
Pornography.
Pornography, anything. But it's all within what I want to do, and I absolutely love it, and I'm really good at it. I could be a good lawyer, yes, but also am I good at doing other things on video and camera?
How would you feel when you want to have kids yourself?
Well, I mean, I don't really want kids right now. But
you will do. How old are you?
25.
Right, so you will do at some stage, probably, right?
Maybe.
When you do, you're going to be proud that you have your little ones and they look at you and go, didn't you want to be a lawyer, Mummy? What happened?
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, but look at all my stuff.
They can cry in a Ferrari.
I love that line. And it's so interesting.
To her credit, that quite literally is like, that is an ethic of capitalism, whether we're talking about a 25-year-old man that's working on an oil rig, giving himself cancer, or a 25-year-old woman who's taking a picture of herself doing God knows what on a camera. It says, well, yeah, listen, I'm killing my body, I'm killing my social life, but listen, brother, little Kobe Jr., he's going to be having the greatest gaming PC. He's going to be Armored Core 10. He's going to be in the damn Armored Core.
Yeah.
He'll cry in his Armored Core. He'll cry in his mech.
Exactly, right? Like, yeah, the capitalist society that he upholds, right, with all the strength that he certainly doesn't want to fall, to be dismantled, to be critically critiqued, right? Like in that society, this is exactly. This is the only answer that there can be that question. Is that like, well, I'm just going to make a lot of money and that'll solve everything. It will solve everything. The be all and end all. And he accepts that in every other category, right? He accepts that. But here, no, he's got a problem with it. And then he doesn't have a way to critique that, to push back at that, because he doesn't want to implicate not just the patriarchy, but capitalism. And of course, those two things are heavily tied at this point. But like, it's unbelievable. Shit, I was going to say something else. But my problem here with this, and as you'll see with the rest of this video, is that like Piers Morgan is fine with like the flaunting of femininity, but only if it's in his like preferred bubble, right? Like when his prescribed bubble of acceptability, of a polite acceptability that works for him. And this does, not like this man hasn't watched porn, right? Like he's above that shit, right? No, he's part of it. But like this is outside of what is prescribed from him. And so when he meets these women, he can look down on them and say, well, it's not from moral application, but I'm just a little disappointed that you would take this route. And on the other end, right? Yes, I want you to take off your clothes, but not like I would like you to wear like a string bikini. That makes me very happy. A woman can choose that, but if she takes off her top, well then, oh no, right? Like then society is falling apart. It's
all OnlyFans needs to do is get like half of their board of directors to be women, and then this Ellie person can just be like, but Piers, you do know it is women, don't you know? You're like, oh, okay, never mind then. Okay, show
Women are
Chloe,
profiting
everybody.
off of it. There you go. Women, it's all women up and down who are profiting off of it. Like it's a capitalist success story.
Okay, so I don't really know a lot about One Piece, but there's a villain in the show who's like a big, huge woman named Mama. Am I right?
Big Mom.
Yeah, Big Mama. I'm imagining the greatest trick patriarchy could pull is if patriarchy made the king of patriarchy Big Mama. No one would have any argument, bro. It's all just a woman's choice. It's just a giant fucking woman's choice.
Just a giant tyrannical woman. And Big Mom, not Big Mama, but Big Mom, yeah. Exactly that. Like she's just like all the others, in terms of like the big pirates, she's an awful human being. Like just an awful person, a greedy individual, but it's a woman. And so it's different. But okay.
You see, I know there will be people watching this, younger people cheering you on, going, yeah, girl, you go, Elle. And then the other people going, what are you sounding like? You sound awful, grotesque. It's like, why go down this road? You've obviously, you could be doing something so much better for the world than this, couldn't you?
No, yeah, she could be in a beauty pageant. She could be in the ones that he likes with the bikinis. She could be doing that.
She could be a beauty pageant. She could be a Blair White style right-wing provocateur. It's just so many different options.
So many things. She has options there.
Maybe she could get a job at Fox News.
At Fox News, yeah, like telling other women how shit they are for the choices that they make. Yeah, she can do all these things. They're all open to her.
Like sexually open since I was at school, and if you met anyone in my year group, they would be like, you were absolutely made to do this. And I think if you put your mind to something, then you can absolutely achieve it. Like, look at me, with a little bit of good looks and hard work, you can become a millionaire.
Blair, look, play devil's advocate. Blair, I mean, look, I saw you rolling your eyes, but the bottom line is she's making millions doing what she enjoys doing.
But hold on, okay, so she what she just said, right, is like with a little bit of luck and hard work, you can do this, right? You can become a millionaire, right? And Blair rolls her eyes, and she's gonna continue on with this, right? That like not likely, but that's literally the capitalist message, right? This is the American dream that you can become a millionaire, right? And it's because if you didn't work hard or you weren't lucky enough, well, that's on you. Right, that's their analysis in all other areas. That like this is on you, and now at this point, Blair can see the light and can see. Well, yeah, it's actually not likely that you're going to be successful in this game, right? She's not going to ever implicate the entire capitalist game, but this where she can moralize about it. Oh, now she's gotten it. Now she realizes not everyone can succeed. There are going to be a lot of losers in this game. And what should we do about those losers who are bent and broken and discarded? Right now she has something to say about that. But otherwise, not so much. Not so much. As long as capitalism breaks you in a McDonald's, right? As long as it breaks you in a coal mine, then it's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I heard a really good way to describe the end of the hippie culture. It was a hippie talking about why he left the movement, and he said the sentiment every man or do your own thing man quickly becomes every man for himself. And I think that we're seeing that here, right? Where it's like it starts off as do your own thing, live your own life, but then if you fail and you fuck up and you have you fall into a pit, then it's listen, brother, you're gonna have to get yourself out. Hey, you fell into a pit, dumbass, pit lover over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's clearly very popular. I mean, who are we to be too prudish about it, frankly?
It's nothing to do with Elle, but I think it's important to state that it's not just about having good looks and a little bit of work ethic, because oftentimes, like I just said, you could be incredibly good looking on OnlyFans and only bring in $180 a month.
You can have an incredible work ethic and be incredibly smart and still fail at capitalism. Oh, sorry, she didn't say that. It's me. Excuse me.
Yeah. And still take on the entire stigma of doing sex work. So while it's important to, say that everyone can do what they want, we do have to acknowledge that Elle is the exception, not the rule. And oftentimes these young girls, sometimes on their 18th birthday, are being misled into joining this site that completely demolishes any prospects of future employment for them. And often statistically, any chances of having relationships. A lot of OnlyFans girls are actually regretting being on the website, coming forward and saying they can't get a job now and they can't get a date. And they never even made the money to justify doing it.
That's a good
I'm so
point.
happy for Elle, but that's the exception to the rule.
Okay, yeah, let me ask you on that point. I mean, do you have a man or not? You want a man?
No, I'm single at the moment. But can I just point out that people fail at jobs all the time? Like, just because you didn't make it as an actor, do you regret being an actor? Like, so many companies go busk. And, like, what that point
right. If you fail at OnlyFans, you've done porn.
Sorry?
I said, but if you fail at McDonald's, you didn't flip a burger correctly for a customer. If you fail at OnlyFans, there's videos and pictures of you having sex or being naked on the internet forever. There's much
you
worse
make that
consequences.
choice. It's not like loads of people fail.
No, I know,
if you make
but
that
you should
choice
make
of
the
getting
choice
naked,
armed
then you
with the
can
information. But you
agree
should
with
be
the
armed with
circumstance.
the information, is what I'm saying. You do
What
make
does
a
it say,
choice,
though, Elle? I
absolutely.
mean, honestly, we've got to wrap it up, but what does it say about society where a bright young woman like you,
Yeah.
right, decides to abandon a career in a fantastic career as a lawyer to do this just because it's making you money online? What does it say about the way society's gone?
That I'm successful no matter what I do. I'd be successful as anything. It just
Are you proud of it? Are you proud of it, though?
Yeah, of course
Really?
I am. Of course I am. Look
More
at
than
me.
you would be as
Through
a lawyer?
OnlyFans, I box. I have a big social presence. I have everything, and OnlyFans was my gateway to become this influencer that I am now.
But
I
who wants
absolutely
to be
am
an
proud of that.
influencer, really? What does it mean?
Who wants? Have you met any?
You, Pierce Morgan, you want to be an influencer.
While we're watching the Pierce Morgan Uncensored YouTube channel.
It's amazing. Pierce Morgan Uncensored, it says it right behind her. You want to be an influencer. You've been doing it your entire goddamn life. And when they fired you off of the Britain whatever Morning America show, right? When they fired you from that, you went and made your own show because you had to be an influencer so goddamn badly. Oh fuck.
Any, maybe not OnlyFans, but any
I
kid at
find
school,
all
they wanna be
influencers pretty shallow people.
Yes, I do too. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I've got to be honest, because
feel-
they think they're great influencing on people, but most of them aren't. They're a bad influence.
I feel like now you've been deplatformed, you're kind of an influencer.
Really?
Yeah,
thank
I'd
you.
say
Way.
so.
Hey,
I don't know,
stupid.
just, you can have any views online and post them when you're an influencer.
That's true.
That has me as you.
That's true, but I see myself as a journalist. It was a career.
Oh, I bet you do. Oh, I bet you see yourself as a journalist.
Exactly. That's so funny.
Yeah. No. I see. I'm not an escort. I'm a stripper.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Always wanted to do. You would have been a lawyer
Yeah.
if you hadn't taken this path. I reckon I'll
Yeah.
interview again in 15 years.
Yeah.
And you'll say, you know what, Piers, you were right.
I'll pick you up in my Bugatti.
Okay. Well, it'll be one or the other. Thank you for coming in. Elle, appreciate it. And thank you, Blair. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
I love how she pronounces the word Bugatti. That's really charming. But anyway, yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love the dichotomy there. The dichotomy is real. And I had a respect for him if he had sided with the feminist in the previous video. If he had sided with her, right? And then he had taken that framework and applied it evenly. All right, okay, fair enough. But no, he doesn't. As long as it's in his prescribed his prescribed manner, right? That then he allows it, right? Then it's okay. This sex work is the one I find respectable, and I should laud, and I would encourage other women to do it. And I think it's empowering when women take off their clothes. Honestly, I do, right? When they're scantily clad, that's fine. But hold on. What if they're scantily clad on OnlyFans, right? Like his prescription wouldn't have changed. Like his reaction here wouldn't have changed if Elle didn't like get fully nude, and if she was just like in bikini and was on OnlyFans. There's some women who do that on OnlyFans. They just like they do bikini, they don't do full nudes, right? And they make money on OnlyFans. But his reaction would be exactly the same, 100% the same. He finds it icky. He doesn't like it.
I do find it kind of interesting. Something I thought as we were pointing out, like they're one step away from like a pretty reasonable capitalist critique of like the way that like we get encouraged to kind of like fuck up our lives for money, but they won't go all the way there. I don't know. I find there's something about that that's just like it reminds me of when conservatives become antitrust and anti big business when they get banned from social media. They get banned from social media, and they're like, "You're telling me there's 3 companies that own all these social media platforms, and they therefore impose their ideology on all of the market? What the hell? What the hell? We got to do something." It's like, yeah, brother, yeah, you're right. What? Do you want to know who makes all your chicken nuggets, bro? You want to know who makes every type of soda you've ever drank in your whole fucking life? It's 2 fucking companies. So the same thing with this, where it's like, yeah, I agree. Isn't it crazy that there's this company that encourages you to destroy all of your social status for money? That sucks, bro. Oh, fuck, I hate that, bro. Ah.
Yeah, right. Like, isn't it weird? Like, in terms of like ruining your life for the benefit, for the monetary benefit of others. Like, let's talk about companies that force you to work 50, 60, 70-hour work weeks, or you're fired. Let's talk about that. No, when it breaks your body, when your health gets destroyed, right? Like Blair White talking about McDonald's. Oh yeah, if you get fired from McDonald's, then you flip the burger wrong. Yeah, but what about a corporate job, one that you would find respectable, in which you are now expected to be available at all times of the day, where that comes before anything else, right? And in fact, that could be a lawyer. She could have been a lawyer, and that could have been her fate, right? She could have had to be the beck and call for her clients at all points in time, sacrificing that family that they care so much about, right? Her future little boy, little girl, right? What if they didn't see their mom because she was working so hard as a lawyer, right? And bringing in money that she just had to sacrifice their time. She couldn't spend their time with them, right? She'll be able to do that in this future, but in that future where she's sacrificing all that stuff for something respectable, they have no problem with that. There is no critique. I don't know what to say, right?
Yeah.
They say like that's the grind, that's the capitalist grind, and they have nothing. There's no response.
Yeah, no, it's interesting the places where you'll be walking up the mountain of thought with somebody, and then you'll get to an oasis, and they'll be like, "I like it here, actually. I actually just there's like a little river, and like I'm chilling. Actually, let's just sit." Like, yeah, we're not at the peak though. Look at we can see the peak. It's up there. It's like, yeah, but it's like 5 more hours of hiking. We can just sit. We can just chill right here.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna end things here, but guys, this has been a lot of fun. Shout out to my man Kobe. Unfortunately, he had some internet problems, but he still made it work. We appreciate it.
Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for sticking with me.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. We'll be back next week, hopefully. Assuming we got 2 points of failures here. Assuming none of us fail, then we will be back. So stick around, subscribe, like, or follow the channel if you haven't done so yet. Let's see, for our Twitch audience, where can we send you rating? Agenda.
Who's gonna get it?
Sorry, what?
Okay, who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get our viewers?
Yeah, I don't know. Agenda Free TV, I guess. I don't know. I'll send it to them. Off you go to Agenda Free TV. And we will